Good morning. Welcome. Been on a Monday.
Outrage Monday. I like that.
You like that? That's what today should be, is Outrage Monday. I like to call it Fourth and Monday, Victory Monday. All three of our NFL teams won.
Yeah.
Um,
Rarity. Well,
rough day if you're a New York Giants fan. I would stay away from the fan and listening to any sports talk.
how is Richie?
Yeah.
I thought of him yesterday.
He stopped texting after about 5 minutes after the game. So I did not want to bug him, but
Understandable.
I did jinx it, though. I sent him at halftime because I was a big Giants fan yesterday.
Right.
Rooting for the Giants to beat the Broncos because I needed that. And if the Chiefs would have been in first place or at least tied for first. And I was like, man, you guys got a quarterback. This is kind of fun. And he did say, to his credit, he did say it's way too soon. But I don't think he could have ever imagined the complete meltdown that the Giants had where you're up by 17 in the third quarter. You still score 10 points in the fourth quarter, and you lose the game. Damn kickers. Damn decision makers that wear headsets. But if your team had a good weekend in football or whatever sport, welcome. Because today is a great day in sports. You know why?
Why is that?
Because game
Game
seven
Of course.
of the ALCS, America needs Vladdy against Shohei, the $500 million man against the guy who I believe could be the $1 billion man. So go Blue Jays tonight.
Whoa.
Yes.
You're not rooting for your guy Stibbs?
No, I like Toronto and Los Angeles to play.
I want the Mariners to win. I like franchises that haven't been to places before.
Well,
unless
that is
they're
true. That is true. Seattle's never been to. See, that's the unique thing about tonight. Seattle's never been to a World Series, and Toronto hasn't been there since '93.
See, and also too, minus the Lions.
Good
Like
time.
I never want the Lions to go to a Super Bowl, but everybody else, if you haven't won a title yet, and you're not a rival of mine,
Mhm.
I want you to win. I want them to win.
Oh,
They've been
that's
through
nice.
a lot.
Look at
It
that.
seems like every time they're in Seattle, there's all those fans there. They seem like diehards. They're living and dying with every pitch. I would like them to do it.
Yeah, the atmosphere in the ALCS much different than the atmosphere in the NLCS. Like you're attracted to Seattle and Toronto to go to a game there. But I just would I like the Canadians versus the Americans. I think that would be
Yeah.
ironic. This
It would
World
be.
Series. But I'm not gonna. If the Mariners make it, I'm like, oh, I'm not watching the World Series. I don't know. Whoever makes it's going to be tough to knock the Dodgers out. But we get Game 7 tonight. We get 2 Monday Night Football games. We get to watch Baker
Hi.
Mayfield and Levante David play.
That game's good enough.
Oh,
You have a
Bucks
base
Lions.
Detroit. That's it.
Yeah, and
That's all
then
you need.
and then look at the odd scheduling. Not scheduling because when the NFL put out their schedule, they were not expecting the Mariners to be playing in Game 7 of the ALCS.
Sure.
You sweepy?
I'm sorry. I was just yawning.
You're
Oh,
sweepy.
that's okay.
I'm not
Oh,
sweepy.
you're so sweepy over
I'm
there.
not
I didn't know why you're
sleepy.
sweepy.
Stop.
You will have Houston and Seattle playing basically at the time that the ALCS is coming to an end in Toronto.
Yeah.
So you could have had a Game 7 of the ALCS and Monday Night Football right across the street from each other. Now I don't know
Oh,
how they would
really?
do it. They've done it
Wow.
where the Mariners have played in the afternoon or vice versa,
Uh-huh.
and the Seahawks have done the opposite. But you probably would have had two going at the same time. So we get that tonight, and we live in a world where Florida and Penn State are looking for head football coaches. What a wonderful,
congrats, Brian
what
Edwards.
a wonderful sports day that is ahead of us after a crappy Friday night. That's right. It's Outrage Monday. How are we doing with an extra day? An extra day to digest what happened on Friday night in Minneapolis.
More
Look,
mellow?
you brought it up last week. It's great when you don't play on a Saturday and you win, because then you get to enjoy the slate and you're happy and you have, you would have been 6-1. You would have been whining and dining, looking at the rest of the Big Ten,
Pumpkin
being like, how
patches
does
would
this
look
affect me?
nice, weddings.
Instead, you lose, and you lose in terrible fashion. And then you go to the golf course the next day, and all you can hear is everybody around you talking about how bad the loss was.
It was, we got lots of thoughts on this
We do.
because now Northwestern is ahead. By the way, 11 o'clock. One of the benefits, I think, of losing on Friday is my dream of USC and Nebraska going 3-0 before November 1 completely went. So we might actually get a 6:30 night
Yeah.
game for the blackout
See?
on
We'll all
November
get what
1st.
we want.
Yeah.
Well, we got what we want, and maybe we don't want that. We had an identity game on Friday night that Nebraska failed for. Here, and think about as we reach Monday. I've been talking about this on podcasts and shows for 2 days now.
Okay.
So I'm almost talked out. But
Sure.
there's always more to talk with all of our fine listeners out there.
You
Is
re-energized.
so Nebraska had, I mean, listen, this is nothing new. Nebraska
Sure.
had been punching down for the last 2 weeks. And I think a very arrogant Friday night football team in the University of Nebraska were not prepared to play that game, thinking that they could punch down again and Minnesota would just lay down and take a beating. But in an identity game, you have to understand that game is the Super Bowl to Minnesota.
Yeah.
That game is the Super Bowl to the head coach. And he gets his team to play. And Nebraska had been punching down. You know what? Somebody punched them back and bullied them. And it was the grown-ups versus the kids on Friday night. And it becomes Matt Rule's worst loss as a coach. And the vibe in about 6 days around here from, hey, Nebraska's 5-1. They're ranked. Oh, by the way, if they would have won Friday night, you look at the 9 ranked teams that lost over the weekend.
Yeah.
Nebraska would have moved up in the polls. But, but the vibe has changed. And now with Northwestern coming up, I have a 5-2 football team.
Yes.
Who still has some good things that have developed, but also has some things that are still issues that have been issues from day one. And I don't know if that's stubbornness or if that's arrogance. They haven't been fixed. We have reached a little bit of a crossroads in the Matt Rule era at Nebraska, where there's a 5-game vibe check to let everybody know, can you or can't you break through the glass ceiling?
Well, I think that they went from being in a great spot and everybody being incredibly happy with how things are going to so quickly, like your backs are against the wall. Like and we talk about it all the time, how this is a week to week sport and how 1 week you could be here and 1 week you could be on the absolute opposite side. We went from people who thought that they were going to win that game by 10 or 17 to those same people now think that, they might go 6-6 or 7-5.
You're right. It has changed so much. But here's the thing about as you navigate this week, because there's part of me that's like some of the stuff that happened on Friday night has been there, and Nebraska's been messing with the food, and somebody finally stole their food and ran down the street and said, "Ha, catch me." Things that are an issue are still an issue. Now you added a few more questions. You didn't take any questions away.
Yeah.
This is a big week for Nebraska, the football program, because you can show everyone that it was a bad night at the office and it's just one loss and it's college football in the year of our Lord 2025 and it happens. Or it is when you get to 5 and you have a little success and people pat you on the back, how come you can't break through? I mean, the stat that is out there that is jarring is Matt Rule getting to 5 wins, but then once he gets to 5, he's only 1-10.
Yeah.
There's also the first half versus the second half. And I think if you're and I believe they will do this, and Rule speaks today, and you're gonna have a lot to talk about, is you have to be cognizant of the noise that is out there when you lose a game like that. And people going, well, I don't know. It's 5-2. What are you? You have to recognize it. You can't run away from it, but you can't be consumed by it. Because I think this week it would be easy to be consumed. So we all are going to be in wait and see mode until 11 a.m. on Saturday, taking on a team that's played fairly well of late in Northwestern. And now you're also going to go, hey man, look at that, we're about touchdown favorite. So how they handle this week, and then how they handle business on Saturday, not just messing with your food, but things look crisper. Big week, a little bit crossroads, a 5-game vibe check at the end of year 3 to get an indication of where this whole thing is going.
I like the term you use in terms of the 5-game vibe check. I think it's a 5-game culture check, and I think that last week we talked about, like, hey, you got to prove you're a different team. You got to prove you can go on the road and beat the guys that you haven't beaten. You got to prove that you can handle the noise. Now it's, you have to prove the culture once again that, hey, you can respond after an embarrassing loss.
Yeah, they were
embarrassing loss.
I think they showed a lot of immaturity on Friday night. I think they overlooked Minnesota.
Do you think that their youth and inexperience showed?
I think they just got caught up in the moment. They're playing well. They're 5-1. Everybody, they're ranked now. And on a short week, they went into that game and thought, you know what? Minnesota, they had a rally to beat Purdue. We're better than Purdue.
Sure.
I don't know. You can't mess with the football god karma very much in the sport. Sometimes it'll come back and bite you. Sometimes you
Sure.
get away with it, like Michigan State and Maryland.
Yeah.
Sometimes you play a team that just
Well,
sucks your soul and beats you up, and you have to live with it. You're 5-2, and you got beat 24-6, and it's the worst loss that Matt Rule has had in Nebraska, worse than the Indiana loss. And ironically, a lot of things he said, I don't know if you guys talked about this on Big Red Overreaction, a lot of things he said after the game were word for word what he said after the Indiana game.
I just think the worst part about that loss is that it wasn't as if a bunch of new things got exposed and things that you didn't think could happen happened. The worst part was you knew that they had problems on the defensive line. You knew that they had a problem on the O-line. You knew that they had a quarterback who at times had a tendency to hold the ball too much. And all of those problems came through. And
No, I don't think they're all new. I mean, like you said, they're
all
that's
the
the
same.
frustrating thing is we're now 7 games into the season with 5 to go, and issues that were issues in the middle of August are still issues, and I don't think they can get corrected. I mean, corrected without an offseason of personnel
and
changes.
But on top of that, Gary, too, like they also did not do a good job of trying to coach around those issues during the game.
Yeah.
Like they
Absolutely.
they knew that they could not throw the ball, and they knew that they had problem protecting the quarterback, and yet they decided to drop back 38 times. And I thought Dana had a terrible day. I thought Dana had by far his worst day as a play caller at Nebraska. And I still trust him. I still really, really like him. But like you have a running back who was cooking, who looked like the best player out in the field, who was making everybody miss. And you decided to take the ball out of his hands and put it into the hands of a guy who by far played his worst game as a Nebraska Cornhusker.
Yep.
That I didn't get.
That's the thing is how you perform on Saturday against Northwestern will say if it was one bad day at the office, and it happens in Nebraska under Mike Riley, under Scott Frost, under Matt Rule has an Iowa-Minnesota problem. That if you want to win in the Big Ten and play Big Ten football, you have to build like a Big Ten football team. And you can regain some goodwill just by how you play.
Sure.
And of course the result on Saturday. So there's lots to discuss. But we also live in a wonderful world of college football. Not the world where Nebraska gave up more sacks than they scored points, which is still befuddling to me. Is Indiana may have the number 1 overall pick in the 26th draft.
That's crazy. And
Vanderbilt may have the Heisman Trophy winner. That is what college football is this year. How great is that? And in a world that I don't know if it exists, but there is the potential down the road that Indiana Vanderbilt, to cap off the 2025 season, could be playing for a national title.
No.
It's like the video game.
No.
Could be playing for a national title.
I will pump the brakes. Fernando Mendoza, everybody's fallen in love with him. I just got my Todd McShay article of the day, so I'm sure that he's going to be raving about Fernando and telling us that he's the top quarterback. They're not going to play each other they're not going to play.
Wow.
You never know. Weird stuff are happening. Florida and Penn State have already fired their coach. We're going to have a game at the end of the year where we're going to have 4-7 Florida State playing 4-7 Florida with interim head coaches. I mean, you never know. They might be the best way to cap off the season. Now, I don't know that I would be there for it because I'd actually like to see Ohio State and Indiana play.
I think those are
I would like to see Ohio State and Alabama play.
Okay, there it is.
But game day is going to be in Nashville. They could have gone to Brookings for the Dakota Marker game, but instead
another SEC game.
Well, I mean, hey, it's not a great slate this weekend.
It is not.
Like you just had Ole Miss, and they're going to Norman.
More reason for the Dakota Marker.
LSU A&M will be pretty good, but
will it?
I think so.
I'm over LSU.
Really?
Okay.
You too?
Why wouldn't you?
I mean,
I think LSU fans in a soft culture with a terrible fit and a bad defense, I would be over Brian Kelly as well.
Yep.
I think it's more so when you look at what the Big Ten is doing this week, the Big Ten has an absolutely terrible. The best game is Minnesota, Iowa.
Yeah,
that's the best game we're looking at.
The 2:30 CBS game.
Yeah.
This is why the rankings.
That line's
matter.
a little bit large. What, 7.5?
I haven't looked at that line.
Gronowski had a nice run against Penn State.
Well, I'm more so just looking at the numbers. This is my pea brain of like the AP still matters. And so I look, LSU and A&M are in the SEC and they both have a number.
It sounds like it should be a great game.
Exactly.
I get you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but Vanderbilt and Indiana, what they're doing, I think is great for the sport.
I think
Okay.
well they're
Because people are talking about two programs that you don't normally talk about. And you have Francisco Mendoza, who could be the first overall pick. And that's scary if Indiana all of a sudden can attract quarterbacks that need a bump after stopping off at their first place. And they're going to like, hey, Cignetti can fix me. That's kind of scary because Miami's in that boat depending on how Carson Beck, if Carson Beck turns into a first-round guy, that's back-to-back transfer guys that become first-round guys. But look at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has their Johnny Manziel with all the outside noise. Johnny Manziel came in and revitalized Texas A&M, and he brought some swag to them when they needed it. Okay, and they won some football games. And then he completely flamed out, and we know what happened, post-freshman Johnny football. Look at Pavia. Pavia's got swag. He's a different breed. He's been in college for 14 years, and he is the spark for Vanderbilt that you open the door and go, man, Clark Lee can coach.
Mm-hmm.
Why is Clark Lee going to stay in Nashville? Why isn't Clark Lee's name up for other jobs? But Pavia shows up, and he's got swag. He's also a pretty good player, and he makes players around him better. And then he gets game day to come to Nashville. Herb Street, by the way, won't have to travel very far. He lives kind of in that neighborhood.
He also did a very good job of, and this is like the era that we're in, where it's like all about the brand and associating yourselves with platforms. Like he did a great job associating himself with Pat McAfee, and he did a really good job of associating himself with like Theo Vaughn and people that could like promote him.
Isn't Theo a Vanderbilt season ticket holder?
I'm pretty sure he is.
He was on the sidelines talking about they need to get rid of the tariffs because we're not going to get as many Otanis. I was like, wow.
Is that what he said?
Wow, how much have you been tailgating today?
Theo Vaughn has been trying to go on a date with Diego Pavia's mother. That's been like
didn't he win a bet?
Yeah, Diego has been gambling his mother's ability to date, I guess, with Theo Vaughn. So that's been really funny as well. I don't like him. I thought he was loud and brash and annoying, and I rolled my eyes at him and I made fun of him.
Which one?
And Diego.
Okay.
And I thought it was absolutely ridiculous that he thought he was going to beat Alabama again and he was going to do all this stuff. And I don't like being proved wrong. And he has completely proved me wrong because look, they have been the team that's been like the most competitive with Alabama, who looks like the best team.
Yeah.
The second best team in college football right now. Like they were a very, very ticky-tack fumble away from leading again in that game. And then he threw a pretty bad interception in the fourth quarter. No one has played them as close as they have. No. Like they are legit. They are really, really good.
Yeah, so it would be nice to have those kind of conversations surrounding a quarterback.
Well,
on good days and bad days.
Well, that's going to be 2 times in a row. Like I know Rourke didn't go I don't know if he even got drafted. But he was a guy who was unknown from Ohio. They bring him into Indiana and immediately he becomes this known commodity who, if he doesn't break his hand, was making a case for himself to end up winning the Heisman Trophy, And this is going to be 2 times in a row where Cignetti does this, where he gets a quarterback from a lesser conference and ends up propelling them into this dude.
Yeah. All right. If you'd like to join the show on Outrage Monday after Nebraska loses to Minnesota 24-6, that brought fans out of the stands. They had a little gathering in the middle of the field. I don't know that I would call that a field storming.
A little picnic.
Easier to get out.
Fleck, by the way, encouraged that before the game.
Well, they were technically Nebraska was a ranked opponent.
Yeah.
And Minnesota was an underdog. And when you beat a ranked opponent as an underdog.
Yeah, I tell you what, if you're outraged by that, there's I got about 400 other things on the list that come before that. They want to have a little gathering, and I called it a gathering because I saw it. Okay, it was a gathering. All right, it was like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. So let's go out there and let's just do that. But it's a big deal to Minnesota. It is a big deal to Minnesotans to beat Nebraska, to make fun of Nebraska. And once again, on that stage with a chance to break the glass ceiling, the ceiling went, and now Northwestern becomes a big game on Saturday at 11 a.m. You going to be mixed this week?
No,
yeah.
I graduated.
But you love your purple. Are you just going to take the week off? Are you going to be neutral all week?
No,
that would be the way to do it.
If anything, black. I do bring some advantages to the show this week because I don't think anybody else on your station has watched as much Northwestern football as Jimmy and I have. Because Jimmy has also become a pseudo Cats fan.
Why?
And texts me about he watches the Cats game with me.
He got me into Cats basketball.
Well, Cats back. I mean, that's the season. I mean, it's always. I'm sorry, guys. That's
Wow.
that's one.
Wow.
That's the one where it is a little mixed. It is slightly mixed. When we're talking Cats basketball, yeah, that is the one where I have a little bit of trouble.
I get a
when they
text
play
Saturday from
Nebraska.
him that says
But-
Fitz is in the house. LFG.
Oh,
Right
there-
away, I was
there
like, I know
no
what he
way they were
means.
losing that
Yeah,
game.
they bungled that thing. I heard.
They were. What? Whoa. what do you
Yeah,
mean?
I
What
guess it
happened?
was a disaster.
Oh no, I didn't hear that.
So the ceremony lasted like 2 minutes.
That's ridiculous.
and the only person they introduced was Gary Barnett.
Ah.
Not even Darnell
Whoa.
Autry.
Oh, come
Yeah.
on.
Okay, that's terrible.
Not even
Yeah.
Steve
That's
Schnurr.
that's so
So this is coming
that's
from
terrible.
Teddy Greenstein, who used to cover Northwestern at the time, who used to be the Chicago Tribune, got out of the business. He was there because he got to know a lot of those guys,
Yeah.
and he's the one that said it was completely botched by Northwestern.
How can you that is the greatest athletics. That's the greatest team in that like school's history.
Yeah.
Like there has never been anyone who has
Bad karma.
accomplished
Huskers roll on
accomplished more.
Saturday.
Look, Fitz was in the building. I knew they were going to win. It was awesome. It was a really good win for
Mhm.
them. Kamalafe looked really, really good.
He got hurt though, right?
Caleb?
I think he got hurt.
Did he get hurt? I didn't see that he got hurt. Now Hyman was playing really, really well as well. I mean, they have
That's
two
a-
running
it's an
backs that's
important
really
game
good.
for both teams.
But they
Eggs and eggs.
No, I'm not going to be mixed. I
Yeah.
went to the University of Nebraska. There's no mix here. Zero.
Let's see.
When they play basketball, maybe. I mean, it's the truth. I'm honest. This
Yeah,
is
I will
just
say,
me
I will
being
say,
honest.
you were crushed, and you were dog cussing Fred last year when
That's
Nebraska turned it around in Evanston.
That's not true. I wasn't dog cussing anybody. I was more dog cussing when Brooks Barnheiser got injured, and they would have had an opportunity to go to the tournament if he didn't. And I was also dog cussing when they went to Penn State and they got absolutely hosed in that game, which I still
We
won't.
talking
get over.
about Nebraska or Northwestern?
getting-
I know.
Talking
So
about
that's
Nebraska.
one where they can all take.
So
yeah.
they went on to win the crown, and then Saturday they beat BYU.
Yeah.
Exhibition games matter only if
Okay,
you win.
wait. I got to tell before we go to break. I know we're trying to go to break, but
Sound like it's a good one.
I was with my roommate and he was watching YouTube and
Yeah.
I could hear it in the background and I figured he was watching the basketball game and I don't know how much of the show he watched, but he's like, "Hey, Bear K looks good in this." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" I go, "Are you kidding me? I can't." I was like, "I already can't escape this at work." And now I'm home. I'm in the comfort of my own home, and I now have to take on Bear K propaganda.
My takeaway about my man on Saturday watching him, he has no chance he'll ever play offensive line at Nebraska.
Oh.
It has nothing to do with not being able to. Well, I guess he could play offensive line at Nebraska, but yeah,
That was a good setup, good and bad setup
Yeah,
at the same time.
yeah. He was out there. He was out there. He got a good run in.
You got a good
It's exhibition. Hey, exhibition games matter to Rink Mast. For Bear K, you got November and December to ramp it up.
He's the Robert
He
Ory
looked
of the
in shape.
Huskers.
He looked skinnier.
he
He did look skinnier.
He does.
He actually did.
He does look in shape, but he also looks kind of the same. That's too bad. All right, I'll see him this weekend. I'll let you guys know how it goes. All right, 32 past the hour. Outrage Monday, Victory Monday, whatever it might be for y'all. We'll discuss. Don't forget the NBA starts tomorrow, and Game 1 of the World Series is Friday, and state softball championships down at Bowling Stadium in Lincoln today. All three classes, including a monster Millard North, Lincoln Southwest Class A tilt. So there's lots to discuss on Gary and Matt. Lots to discuss with you on the Prairie Flower Casino Zone hotline, 402-951-1620. We're back with more after this. All right, welcome to a Monday vibe, a little bit different from last Monday around here concerning Nebraska football. Northwestern is an 11 a.m. game. 6-day holds suck. I think that is terrible for the sports fan. The 6-day holds, that game, the kickoff was not announced until, at 11 a.m. yesterday?
Yes. I think even
that's
later than that.
That's BS for the
It was
sport.
like noon.
It was around
And I agree.
noon.
6 days are the worst.
Yeah, I know. What the
Because
hell?
what will happen with, like in a normal world, USC Nebraska kick time will be announced today,
Mhm.
but will it be put into the 6-day hold because Fox is still trying to figure out Penn State, Ohio State if
You
they're going
almost
to carry that
expect it.
game?
Probably.
Yeah.
Hey, Lincoln Riley, Matt Rule, thank you. We might got our 6:30 game for Saturday night, November 1st.
Yeah,
We'll be
thank you
happy.
for both getting your asses kicked on the ground last week.
They were in
we could
cahoots.
end up having a night game. Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you know Jeremiah Love? Great stat. Set the Notre Dame Stadium single game rushing record.
Not surprised. Every time I had it on the multi-screen,
Yeah.
every time I looked up, he was running down the middle of the field.
And then at one point, he was running down the middle of the field. You're like, that isn't number 4. And then you found out they got another guy named Jadarian Price who could do the same exact thing,
Yeah.
who also returned a punt for a touchdown.
Last night, or Saturday night, proved Notre Dame had no need for you to join a conference. They could go 10-2 without being in
Yeah.
a conference, lose their first 2 to Miami and Texas A&M, and then rattle off 10 in a row. They don't need to ever join a conference.
No.
Just
and,
hang out with the world that you live in.
and they made the playoff rules for them with this 5
ideal.
seed that they had the easiest path last year as the 5 seed into the national championship.
All right, Outrage Monday. If you had a chance to listen to Big Red Reaction or any of the podcasts are out there, I think we've touched on a lot of stuff. We will get into a discussion about the head coach, his OC, his offensive line coach, his offensive line, his running back, his wide receivers, his quarterback,
His team.
all of that
His
that
D-line.
goes together. Hey, I one okay. If there's a couple of positives here.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to have a positivity a Monday after Outrage Monday is Archie Wilson and Kyle Conanan. Hey, good on you. You guys, I hope you got the extra treats. I hope you sat in first class on the way back home. The
Oh.
other one, I think Nebraska averted a really, really sad story surrounding Rocco Spindler.
So he got sent to the hospital.
I think when he was headed to the hospital, there was a feeling that there would be an amputation.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Now I don't know if he'll play football again at Nebraska. This is serious. But yeah, when they were headed to the hospital, I think they thought, oh God, he's gonna lose a finger.
Oh my God.
This is gonna be amputation. And so that's why he went to the hospital.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like in the stadium where, they do have medical facilities,
Mhm.
but this was, on a whole nother level. So what does Nebraska do on the offensive line? I think this will be a question that'll come up for Rule because Tyler Kanak was swimming in it playing guard. I mean,
Yeah.
once Pritchett and Spindler were gone, it was Katie by the door and get the hell out of there as soon as possible. Do you take a chance and move Evans to guard and Sam Sledge plays center? Would that be your best option?
Probably.
We'll see. Matt Rule speaks later this morning. A lot of people will have some interest and some questions, and we have questions that maybe we can answer from Old Man Doug. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well today. Thank you for asking. 31 Love.
I'm doing okay.
You guys will probably disagree with me, but I think and I'm not using it as an excuse. I'm actually upset about it, but the Penn State distraction, this team was not mentally prepared to play. And just a lot of things upset me because here's Matt Rule talking about more money, and he gets worked by a team with a lot less money. And it's really disheartening. I'm sure Andrew will be calling in today, and he had a good point. I think it was on Severe Reaction about that. Right now, we're kind of held hostage by the Raiolas, and that, do you do something about Donnie, which probably should, and how's that going to affect, potentially Dylan? I felt this team has been this way for a while, entitled, and that kind of goes. I don't think they respected Minnesota, and I think Minnesota picks up on that and uses that as a rallying cry. And my biggest regret of the weekend was not going to the Creighton game, and I invested my time, emotion, everything into that Friday night football game expecting to win, and we weren't even close.
Yep. You're not, Doug, you're not, when people pay money to go on the road and that happens, they think less and less about going on the road. And it's such a letdown when you want to go to the Mall of America and get tax-free clothes yesterday and you don't want to go out.
No.
And people stare at you and they're like, oh, there goes a Nebraska fan. Yeah, that was rough, Doug. Doug, thanks for the phone call. Couple of things in there. Which one should I hit first? Because I got thoughts on all of them.
Not respecting Minnesota.
That's I don't want to say fully disrespecting Minnesota, but I thought, as I said, a little immature, thinking, you know what, we got this game.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota had a football coach on Friday night who was 7-1 against Nebraska, and I said this on a different show. Nebraska doesn't play Minnesota next year. I would take PJ Fleck aside.
Yeah.
I would say, how do you do it, PJ?
No.
How do you do it? How do you do it?
How do you get him up?
No. I don't want him to talk about his team.
Sure.
I want him to self-scout Nebraska. Now this won't happen. This is a fairy tale comment, but hey, what do you see?
Invite him to the round table.
when you play us, what do you see? Because you talked about the simple basics of football along with beating us up. You talked about making free throws, fundamentals and technique. What got Nebraska in certain situations? Fundamentals, technique. An offensive tackle all of a sudden comes out of his stance and he's flat-footed. That's technique. That's not taught, by the way. That's bad technique. If that's being taught, then that should have been dealt with a long time ago.
Sure.
But I would say, hey, PJ, what is it about Nebraska? He had 4th and inches at the 47-yard line early in the game when they were up 7-3, and he punted because he didn't think Nebraska, because he wanted to get into the let's play Big Ten football from the West Division. We're going to play field position. I have no faith that you guys are going to go 14 plays, 98 yards, 8.5 minutes. The only way that you can score is explosive plays. And you better hope you don't get into the red zone because I know you're not going to score. So let's play the field position game. He punted 4th and inches and after a timeout.
Yes.
Punted at the 47. So he's already saying to you, guys, I don't respect you.
Well, I was laughing at him. I was laughing at him.
I'm sure a lot of people were.
I thought he was an idiot. I thought, well, how could you give this ball to this offense that has, scored 30-plus points in their last 2 games, that has, matchup advantages on the outside? How could you give them, you're just going to let them off the hook? And he clearly proved us wrong. And the funny thing is, too, Gary, it doesn't matter what coach is coaching for Nebraska. He beats them the same way.
Yeah,
he
he's
just
over 3 head coaches.
It just out physical, just bully them, just push them around, just hand the ball off, just take advantage. Like it's the same thing over and over again. All right, here's the second.
Well, they run so. I'm sticking to this phrase: to play Big Ten football, which essentially is run the ball, stop the run. You've got to build like a Big Ten football team. Now, credit to Minnesota. All of the analytics, all the numbers looked at this game as potentially a one-sided game.
Yeah.
And Minnesota got back to their identity, which they had not had really in the previous 6 games. They went back to what their bread and butter is. And you know what? They tried it, and then they were smart. And they said, you know what? They're not stopping this.
No.
If this is the way we're going to win a football game tonight, this is how we're going to do it. And again, to play Big Ten football, you have to build like a Big Ten football team. And that starts on the line of scrimmage. And then you can add a 5-star. Some places can. Great skill players or whatever. But he gets up for this game and they're physical, but they're fundamentals and technique. I mean, it would be almost better if Nebraska got beat because they got, Minnesota made a play or 2 better.
Oh, God, yeah.
But this is the worst kind of loss because it was fundamentals, technique, and you got punched. And you had no counter punch, and they just kept punching and punching. And you know what? You didn't punch back. You kind of took it at times.
Well, and also, too, it's the worst kind of loss in this conference because it's something that could be replicated by teams that you're going to play. Northwestern can replicate a game plan like that. Iowa
Yeah.
can replicate a game plan like that.
Yeah,
Like
there's
they-
you're right. There's a blueprint.
yes.
There's a blueprint on how to beat Nebraska. But is there a blueprint out there on how Nebraska beats you? That's what I would like to focus on, because that's a little uncomfortable conversation right now.
I think definitely so, because I think the blueprint to beat Northwestern at this point is that you just have to be faster than them and you have to be more skilled than them. And I think that you could maybe make an argument that it is more attainable, or probably more likely that Northwestern beats Nebraska in the way that Minnesota did, as opposed to Nebraska beating Northwestern the way that Oregon beat Northwestern, if you're following. Like,
Yeah. See, that game can't get here soon enough. If I'm a competitor, because I mean, you have a chance to prove it was just a bad night at the office, or we got some issues. We got some issues, and now we're swimming in it. Because Doug brings up the distraction.
sure.
I guess there's human nature that it would be a distraction. I don't know. You got bullied.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a distraction, or is it just smart football that you saw something and you said, you know what? If we throw a punch here, let's see if they punch back. Okay.
Well,
let's throw another
sure.
punch. Let's see if they punch back. And let's just line it up and play simple 1-on-1 football, win one-on-one battles. And I don't know. That's not really a distraction. That's football.
Well, I think also too, there was like one of the worst parts of this is that there were a combination of issues that you saw through multiple games rear its ugly head. Like Dana going away from Emmett Johnson having the ball. He did that against Michigan State. Like that was an issue that you had. The not having good run fits from your secondary was a major issue against Michigan. It was the reason they lost that game. And you were hoping after you got exposed like that something wouldn't occur like that again. And it occurred exactly the same way.
Yeah. There's and I know immediately after the game, there was the discussion about Penn State. I think the noise with Rule to Penn State remains the same, in my opinion.
It's still like the losses. And
If Pat Kraft is judging Matt Rule on one game, then I wouldn't want to work for that guy. I think he's already judged Matt Rule. If Matt Rule would be a fit at Penn State, if Matt Rule is a top candidate, I don't think Friday night changed your opinion on somebody.
But
nationally, you go, whoa,
sure.
But I don't think if I wanted a guy, because I could look at it and go, hey, they had a bad night at the office. Okay, I still like that guy, and everything that I think that he has that would fit our program is exactly the same. I don't know.
I agree with that, looking at from a one game perspective, but also if they were to have won that game, the fire would have just been stoked.
Yeah, see, I don't. Yeah, you're right, but I don't think that's going to go away. But I also don't think he's the number one guy.
Shouldn't be the number one guy.
Like I heard Feldman has Rule and Mike Elko.
Yeah. You called it. I mean, it's a good call by you. It makes sense.
You got to be careful though with like this silly season is about to get turned upside down because what happens at Wisconsin? What happens at Florida State? What happens at Auburn? Already Penn State and Florida are open. And let's say a sitting coach at a good program leaves, there's another domino. We're going to find out pretty quick how good athletic directors are.
Sure.
Like how connected they are to agents, how connected they are in the business, and how quickly they move to sell and close.
Well,
it's going to be wild.
Well, I was talking to somebody who's a Wisconsin football fan, and I brought up the case. I'm like, maybe you just keep Fickell for one more year, because it's like, do you currently trust your AD to be able to compete to get a really good guy that wouldn't go to Penn State, that wouldn't go to Florida, that wouldn't go to Florida State, that wouldn't go to potentially Auburn or Michigan? If those jobs end up like opening up, like, I don't know if you're not a premier program, I don't know if you want to be competing in this cycle. Like, how does Virginia Tech feel?
Virginia Tech might feel pretty good because a guy that might leave South Carolina to come home might be your guy, Shane Beamer.
That could be okay. That could be a good one.
I mean, but then another SEC job
South
opens
Carolina,
up.
yeah.
There's dominoes to be had. Thing at Wisconsin, first of all, bad day.
Terrible.
Back-to-back
weeks getting shut out.
What have they scored? Oh, I wrote this down. What are they? They're okay. So the last 5 games, they've scored 34 points. Is that right? So they got shut out by Ohio State. And CBS, I know how they do the student entrance at Camp Randall.
Okay.
So they have to do it in waves. And usually when the game starts, the top half of the student section is not full.
Sure.
but CBS does this big open like CBS does, and they have the drone shot that goes
Yeah.
over the top of Camp Randall, and all you see is this huge swath of seats that are open in the end zone. I mean, that's there. If you hate Wisconsin, you love that shot. But
Yeah.
Wisconsin to me feels like with Fickle is if they get their guy, he's gone. If they are not able to get the guy that the AD wants, then he gets to stay.
God, who's their guy though?
I don't know.
Like that is the thing. Like who is the overwhelming Wisconsin candidate that you're just like, oh my God, they would absolutely fit there.
I mean, there's going to be the connections because of the style and the location of Entz and Leipold.
Sure.
But you're going to have to convince a fan base that if you decide to move forward and the guy that is currently coaching next year, you're going to have to sell that really, really well. But here's what's happening at Wisconsin is I don't know if Fickle has a lot of friends. It's kind of like the Belichick thing. I don't know. Belichick doesn't have a lot of friends.
No.
Because leaks come and you hear rumors of things that are going on. Like Mike Norvell. It came out that players were laughing in the locker room about, oh, how are we going to respond to bouncing back? Now you've got leaks that are internal leaks about scouts not being allowed on campus. Those kind of weird things that are coming out that Fickle has to respond to. Once you see stuff like that and you realize, man, I don't have a lot of friends here. You might want to, even as you might look Fickle, go, man, this isn't for me. Even though you want to stay and fight. I don't know. It just seems like if they get their guy, he's gone. If they not get the guy that they want because they can't miss on this one,
that would
then they say one more year.
But I don't know how you sell that to fans.
No, it's tough. It's tough. You'd have to have some trust, and I don't think they have a lot of trust right now between the fan base and the football coach.
I don't know why you would. I mean, they've like you said, 35 points in the last 5 games. They've been shut out in back-to-back weeks. They went from being like Wisconsin as one of the more respected teams in the Big Ten, where you can almost count for sure they'll get 9 wins and they'll be able to compete with the top of the conference.
And they have Indiana and Oregon left?
Yeah.
Is that right?
And they did look, they lost the schedule lottery. Okay. They lost it. But I think this year, just watching them play, that's been the least of their problems in terms of the fact that they just cannot get off the mat, it seems like, and even compete.
How many college football programs that have openings are going to look at candidates and see who their current quarterback is?
Oh God. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Can you bring your current quarterback with you if we hire you? Or can you do the Oklahoma thing? Get quarterback and OC to come with you.
Well, Eric Morris is a guy over in North Texas where he was able to, he found Cam Ward, he found John Mateer, the quarterback. I don't know his name, but I know he's having a really, really good season. Like, that's the type of guy where, because of what you mentioned with other teams having really success of bringing quarterbacks, he'll probably jump up higher on most people's list than you expect because of that, because you need the QB. We are getting to the point of like, we are in the era of college football that's NFL light, where now we're so quarterback dependent, and you have to be thinking of like, you got to get the guy, because it's so much harder to get the guy now.
Yeah, I mean, bring your quarterback with you, and you're already a step ahead of everybody else. Signetti has impacted college football in 2025. It's great.
It's great. He has. Maybe bring your whole team.
I mean,
seriously,
there's nothing against that.
God,
to get started right away.
Oh yeah. Hey, we'll hire you, only contingent upon the fact that you bring 22 of your guys with you. And they probably all come.
Yeah, I mean, take a big jump. JMU to Indiana.
Go from North Texas to Wisconsin.
I don't know about that sell.
I don't know about any sell that Wisconsin would do, considering the fact they're going to get the 7th best candidate, no matter how you spin it.
All right. Doug brought up the elephant in the room, the Raiolas. We'll discuss when we come back after the top of the hour. Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. All right, before we get started here in hour number 2, Evan Bland going to join us at 8:30 from the World Herald. He got back from the Twin Cities. His reaction to what happened and what's ahead of Northwestern Week. A 5-game vibe check. It's a race to the finish.
This game's going to be, it's so crazy how one week you can be 5-1 and you're like, wow, the season is just ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking at the playoff and you're rooting for other teams to win so they can be a quality win if you potentially play them and defeat them, to literally a couple of days later, you're sitting here thinking, wow, they might go 7-5 again.
Mm-hmm. I said it last week. I'm still enjoying this season because Nebraska could win every game and they could lose every game.
Yes.
All right. So there is a mystery of what's going to happen, but Northwestern comes in winners of 4 in a row. They haven't given up more than 3 touchdowns since Oregon. Is that correct?
Yep. That
There's
is correct.
There's some interesting teams in the Big Ten that are 3-1.
There are. First off, Northwestern.
But not teams that are 3-1 that you go, oh, they're going to be in the playoff.
Yeah, no, not at all. But like Northwestern hit their over under 7 weeks into the season. Like, that's incredible. It was 4.5. They already had 5 wins. And I told you, I go, if they don't beat Tulane, they're not going to hit it. Like, there's no way they hit it if they don't beat Tulane in week 1. They get their butts whooped against Tulane in week 1, and they still hit it with plenty of time to spare. They got 2 guys running all over the field, and they got some linebackers that are playing some really, really good football.
The line is 7.5. Vegas would like your money. Vegas probably looks at Nebraska post Minnesota differently than you. Playing at home, not a lot of trust in Northwestern, some trust in Nebraska. The total is 44.5 for an 11 a.m. kickoff. People are wondering on the email, the Equitable Bank inbox, what will the crowd be like?
I think the crowd will be fine. I think the crowd will be standard.
Good time, be a nice day.
They're
Now,
still 5-2.
Kegs and eggs.
Now, what a
Get that 6 win.
what a crappy Minnesota beat you twice performance has on Saturday. It takes away from the vibe of USC Nebraska. Now, USC is off this week, so you don't have to worry anymore about UCLA and whatever their record is. They lost to Notre Dame. No, I think the crowd will be fine. It'll be 11 a.m. People will be very, very curious to see if some things that plagued Nebraska Friday night have been rectified. There are some things that they won't be able to fix. But I want to mention this. So thank you. A lot of our listeners, Matt Verzal's memorial was over at Scott at Moylan Field on Saturday morning. Fantastic turnout. Great turnout. Not surprised. So many stories that were told. A lot of laughs. There were quite a few tears, but there were a lot of laughs, and it just reiterated the point. And I've been fortunate enough to get to know a lot of those guys that played on the incredible 90s teams at Nebraska. The brotherhood, whether you were a white guy from Omaha or a black guy from Chicago, or you were an offensive guy or a defensive guy, it didn't matter. There was a brotherhood between those guys that went through it. And to see a majority of them there and the stories they told that included Verz or just included what Verz stood for and who he was and how it was impacted by the time they spent together. Man, it was pretty powerful. So thank you. Ran into quite a few of our listeners that were there, and it was a great event. And as his mom said, Maddie, I know you would have loved it, and he definitely would. So if you had a chance to get to it, you know what I'm talking about. But it was a pretty powerful day over at Scott. All right. Again, Evan Bland's coming up at 8:30. You guys said something interesting on Big Red Overreaction.
Oh, thank you.
No, you did.
I'm
No.
glad we were able to knock that out.
Well, I would hope so.
Thank
As you guys
for
were talking ball.
It's-
It wasn't
one of the W
So
column.
I told you this earlier. I've done plenty of the games after losses that are bad losses. It was kind of subdued.
It was.
Compared to like some just off the rails Big Red overreactions after losses. There's outrage. It's kind of changed to more outrage towards Rule, which is very, very curious.
Yeah.
There
wasn't.
there's the outrage towards. Here's my outrage rankings on Outrage Monday.
Okay.
Rule,
Yeah.
Raiola, Holgerson. Okay. Then it kind of stops, and then it picks up a little bit further down the road about outrage about things. But those
Sure.
are the three main ones.
I
So I didn't think it was off the. You guys handled it very well, and it was
Thank you.
good callers and good conversation. But it wasn't like off the rails of people are drunk and they're pissed and
No.
they're out for Hyde, which that was different. Maybe it was a Friday night. Maybe that was different. But you guys were talking about the Dylan Raiola conversation, how in the good and in the bad and in the between, why is it still such a conversation that it doesn't seem like it's an enjoyable conversation
It's not.
after a win or a loss 20 starts into his career?
So
that was a really, if people didn't hear it, it was in the first hour.
yeah,
If you can go back and find it, because I thought it was a good conversation between you and Josh.
I'll be honest with you. It's actually a conversation that Josh and I had off air like a week
Mhm.
ago during the Maryland game. Like we were just talking, and he kind of had brought that up, and we had gone into depth about it. But I don't think we were thinking like we were going to put it on air because
Yeah.
it was just one of those. They're winning games. They're 5-1. You don't have that. But after they lose to Minnesota and the way that he played and the calls that we were getting calls about Dylan. And we were getting
Yeah.
calls complaining about Dylan, and we were getting the Latif people, and we were getting like the, is he the guy conversation. And it really just, and this is how it started. And I appreciate you bringing it up because I'm excited to have this conversation with you. It's not fun. It's just not fun. Like it should be. You have a 5-star quarterback. He's the highest.
Well, I think we need to stop calling him a 5-star quarterback. He was a 5-star quarterback in high school.
But the reason why I'm calling him a 5-star quarterback, though, is because you have an incredibly talented quarterback that has NFL expectations, that has abilities that teams would kill to have on their team, abilities that maybe we haven't really seen before from a Nebraska quarterback. And he should be out there progressing and getting better and taking steps forward and lighting it up. And instead, we're not having those conversations about how great he is. We're having the conversations about, number one, he's not progressing the way that he should. And number two, we're having all of these off the field discussions as well about what he says and like his body language and like how he is on the sideline. And then the Mahomes conversation and the national conversation. And then on top of when he's playing well, you feel like you have to defend him and it's exhausting to defend him. Like it just, through 20 starts, the Dylan Raiola experience should be a lot more enjoyable than what it is.
It's always and because of who he is, I mean, he's a brand and he's the biggest thing that Nebraska has gotten, and he's got a last name that carries a lot of weight and carries a lot of conversation in 2025. It shouldn't be an uncomfortable conversation. It should be bad day at the office, but everything tends towards, why is he still wearing different pants from everybody else?
Yes.
Why do we keep having a Mahomes conversation? Why don't we have any pocket presence? Why are we doing this, this, and this? It's an uncomfortable conversation, but a little bit on what Doug asked. The whole offensive line, and it is unacceptable to have the University of Nebraska lead the nation in sacks allowed. That Dylan Raiola is the most sacked quarterback in Power 4. That should never, ever happen. Now, the worst loss in Rhule's tenure at Nebraska is UCLA until Friday night. After UCLA, that was a reminder. And I say, you know what? Thank you, Minnesota. Minnesota reminded Nebraska that, I use the whole tight wire. You know what? Sometimes somebody reaches up and cuts it and you fall into the canyon. And then when you're at the bottom of the canyon, do you climb back out? So thank you, Minnesota, for what you did on Friday night. And I'm going to stick with this, and I'm not being sarcastic, because thank you, UCLA. I use that as UCLA is something that really good happened in Rhule's tenure, because it made Rhule stop and assess his program on the fly in the middle of the season. Instead of the offseason, we got more downtime. We got to make a couple of changes. We got to take care of some things before they get worse. And then we'll correct some things at the end of the year, which he did both of them. Okay. Minnesota beats you. And they just reminded you of some issues that you still have. What is your response to a loss like that? Not overreacting, but a response to make sure it doesn't happen again, or you trend in a better spot of, is it personnel on the field, personnel off the field, philosophy, scheme? Do you in a short week say, you know what, Dana, our wide receivers can't be running these long developing routes when my quarterback has a 3-step drop, and by the time he gets to 2.6 seconds in his drop, He's already being blindsided. We got to roll him out. We got to get him going right. He loves rolling right because he looks more comfortable there. Like, these are discussions that have to happen like in season. But the discussion about the offensive line, and I think as we look at the offensive line, it is quarterback, offensive line, running back, it is wide receivers, it is scheme, it is position, coach. All of these things are together. It's not just one person, okay?
Sure.
I'm not here to assess blame of, okay, this one, that was on you. They gave up 9 sacks, okay? That's blame across the board to the entire operation. But if you're going, well, I probably got to start looking at Donnie, but man, look at his last name. You're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and your job is to make sure that the company is humming and is getting better, okay? That if you are hamstrung by a family, that says to me everything you need to know. If you are like, I can't make a move because what happens with Dylan?
Yeah.
You know what? Whose program is it? Whose football program at Nebraska is it? And I'm not saying Rule is doing this, but that's why I hate, well, you got what if you do something with Donnie, man? What's Dylan going to do? Well, here's what Dylan is going to do. And this is probably going to happen to Dylan. First of all, kid's getting beat up. Okay. And is it stunning his development? Is he seeing ghosts? Is he like, okay, now he's all over the map and we have no idea what you're getting. But Nebraska needs the better version of Dylan Raiola. He can't play a game on a Friday night in Minneapolis and Drake Lindsay is a better quarterback. Nebraska can't survive that way. But you know what this is happening now because this is a business.
Sure.
Okay. It's a brand. Hey, Dylan, man, you're just getting beat up. Man, are you going to be able to last to your 3rd year? Whew, I don't know, man. I wonder, why you come here? Hey, we got a Joe Moore Award offensive line. We'll protect you. You're getting just crushed. You think, man, what happens if you get injured, Dylan? What happens if you get hit on the blind side and you blow out your knee and you're going to miss the next year and it's going to, you're going to be a year away from the NFL. You know that those conversations are probably already happening or are coming to happening.
Yeah.
But I think whether it be the quarterback who shares the same last name as the offensive line coach with the guy in between that this is his football program, what is your solutions in the meantime? You can't in the middle of the year make a trade with another program to get an offensive tackle.
No.
What are your solutions that involve the quarterback being better, the offensive line being better, the scheme being better, the what is being taught being better, or the simple bottom line, what is being communicated? Because it looked like on Friday night, and you and I were texting back and forth,
Yes.
that the offensive line calls, guys were not on the same page.
At all.
Gatula is blocking differently, not knowing that Ramir Johnson is behind him.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, a guy goes floop right by him. Now, there's nothing you can do about Ramir getting blown, or not Ramir. Well, you would love to have Ramir
Emmett.
there, but Emmett getting blown up.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you blow up the running back and you're sitting in the lap of the quarterback. But what is the conversation that include all of them to figure out solutions in the meantime? Because this is not just a Minnesota bullied you problem. This has been a problem all year, and everybody has to take onus on it. The quarterback has his issues. The offensive line has their issues.
Yeah.
The scheme has to be different. Where is meshes? Where is slants? Where is Barney? And then also, and I know I just went on a little rant here, but
No,
this
you're
got me
great.
fired up on a different show, is we gotta put handcuffs on the quarterback. Okay. If game manager, fine, whatever. Because for some reason, and this cost Nebraska, I can't do anything about the Hunter drop. That's on Hunter. The deep ball, there is no connection with your wide receivers on the deep ball, and there's no respect from the deep ball. But man, when you have Dane Key open on a fade, okay, and you have him twice that he's open, that would have changed the course of that game. You got to make that play. You're in your 20th game as a starter. You got to make that play.
It's we're getting to the point, Gary, where he's still making mistakes where it was cute when it was his 8th start. It was cute when it was his 10th start.
Yeah.
It was, hey, he'll clean it up.
Yeah.
Now and also we always, what's the cliche, right? With the freshman just in any sport, oh, he's not a freshman anymore. Dylan's not a sophomore anymore. He's a guy who's made 20 college starts. He's not that far away from the Bill Parcells rule of how many starts you have to make to be able to be drafted in the NFL. Like, he's got there are just things that have been a problem since the second he's gotten here that have not gotten better. And that is there. And also too, it just dawned upon me. you bringing up this point, right? About how you have all these issues and you need to find these solutions right now to fix those issues. What irks me the most about the Minnesota game is that they had those same issues against Michigan State.
Yeah.
And then they had solutions to those issues against Maryland. They used the quick game against Maryland. They used crossers against Maryland. They got the ball out quickly against Maryland. They were creative in the run game against Maryland. Why won't those solutions used against Minnesota? Why did you we talked about the Maryland game being an identity game. Hey, your identity might be Emmett Johnson has turned into this really good running back. You can give him the ball more. Your identity might be the quick game with Isaiah Hunter. Your identity might be, hey, we're gonna do all this window dressing with short stuff, and then we're gonna take a shot deep down the field with our quarterback. Where did that go?
I don't know. I think they're so scared of not being able to have consistency on the offensive line that Emmett can't, because Emmett creates a lot of stuff on his own.
He does.
He like kind of wears the Amir cape, that they do not commit to it because they're afraid of, hey, that those two bad plays by the offensive line are going to blow it up. Here's another thing that the offense has really run into, and it's not just a Friday night thing, is one sack, and I know a lot of sacks were on third down.
Yeah.
One sack, it just kills Nebraska's drive. It may be a sack on first down, but it kills Nebraska's drive. And what does that automatically mean? Nebraska's going to throw the ball then on second down, regardless.
Yes.
Regardless.
Yes.
Even at like 2nd and 12, they're going to throw the ball no matter what.
And it's so predictable. But Gary, a penalty kills their drive. A penalty.
But it shouldn't. It shouldn't, but it does.
They should have enough talent and enough athleticism where they can just pop.
Yeah.
A 1st and 15, you're rolling your eyes, being like, oh, this is going to be tough.
Becoming kind of predictable. But there's a lot of questions here.
There's too many questions.
Key and Barney, what's happened there? You know, I know the slot has been taken away a little bit, but those two guys, what is it, 10 catches combined in the last 3 games?
Well,
and no utilizing Barney in the run game.
Isn't it funny though how fast life comes at you? Where last year we were like, wow, they're using Barney way too much on these jet sweeps and these touch passes. Like, can we get more creative with him? Now we're sitting here saying, why aren't you using Barney in the sweep game, in the touch pass game? Like, why is that? I don't know why. All we wanted we just wanted you not to use it as much.
Now they may have said our bookends are getting turnstiled. That by the time Barney gets the ball, the tackle is right there to greet him, and it's going to be for, negative yards. The one thing that is, and it was discussed by people that I respect on Twitter, they're going to have to go back to not having developing routes. Now, the middle of the field was open Friday night.
Yeah.
Like Lindenmeyer was open a bit. But they love running the hashes with their wide receivers. But those routes are 7 to 10. And again, unless you can get to 10 yards in 3 seconds, but by that 3 seconds, Dylan has already panicked or the pocket has collapsed, and your wide receivers aren't even out of their break yet.
Yeah. Well, also too, this comes back to the conversation of wanting Dylan to be the gunslinger and him just being unwilling to just fire in that football into a tight window.
All right, Northwestern this week. Let's talk some Dylan here. Oh, good morning. Hello, Captain.
Good morning, brothers. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. Just day by day as we go as Husker fans.
I got you, brother.
I wanted to call up because I just took some notice things on Dylan, and we can all agree that Dylan wanted to play at a high level in college, and he probably wants to get to the NFL, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And so I noticed just looking back, TJ, he ran track, he won a state title, and he has stats that made him the 5-star or 4-star, whatever he is, that got him to Nebraska. Now, Dylan doesn't have that. All Dylan has is just stats that got him to this level. And from reading, it always was Dylan wanted to play right away. That's why he went somewhere. Not that he wanted to compete for the position. His dad said he wanted to play right away. And so when he gets to Nebraska, after he switches, he comes to Nebraska and he doesn't really have a lot of competition. He gets to play right away. And after last year, those stats are not going to get him to the NFL. This year, he seems a little reluctant, like Matt said, and like Elijah and I said on the other show. He just doesn't seem like he wants to take that chance. Like he's trying to clean up his stats. So that way he can clean it up, because I think Dylan's going to have as many national championships in college in football as I have when it's said and done. So he's only going to have some film and stats to get there. So when you look at the play calling, I think Rule and Dana are kind of taking on what his dad did and putting him in a position so he can get his stats up, so he can get to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
I think that TJ needs to come in just to give this team a break from Dylan Raiola. But Rule's afraid to do that, I think, because if Rule does do that and TJ comes in and he outshines Dylan, then he's got a problem, because now he's 0 for 2 on quarterbacks. And what are you going to do? You're going to not play TJ now and bring back in Dylan? And so I think that's what's going on with this football team. I just want to know what your guys' opinion on that, and what you see.
Cap, thanks. And this will get louder because of, not having mobility. Friday night, you had 2 guys that didn't run track. The only 2 guys in the Big Ten that didn't run track in high school.
That's such a good stat.
Raiola and Lindsey. You had the play caller on one team compared to the other team call plays that fit the identity of the quarterback and his strengths.
Dang.
Nebraska called plays that did not fit the strength of their quarterback. That's why I say put the handcuffs on, make him a game manager, and if he fights that, introduce him to the wins and losses or what matter.
Yeah.
And if Nebraska wins, you're going to get more attention. Do you think, because Cap has been, and he's not alone, about the Latifs and the Tifis, do you think that not changing quarterbacks in the middle of a game is an NFL philosophy? You don't see that in the NFL. I know there is, like, oh boy, what is this going to send? Am I going to have to deal with this?
Sure.
Well, I deal with losing and being 5-3. That's what I wouldn't want to deal with. But do you think it's an NFL thing when there's a scoff of, no, we don't do that here?
Yes, I think it could be. I also think it's just a.
Also, it doesn't seem like it's a thing in college football.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Not really. But I'll say this. So Nebraska, that's a very. I never thought of that, Gary. Because you got to play really, really bad in the NFL to get switched out. Like you have to be absolutely terrible, like throwing 4 interceptions, like being the full reason as to, like, you are the only reason as to why we are losing this game is why you're not getting pulled out. So maybe that's the case. Maybe that's being carried over. I just think, though, if you bring in Latif, you completely change your game plan. Like you completely flip it on top of your head. Like you are calling completely different plays and completely different concepts. And I just don't think that's something you're ready to do in the middle of a game. Like if you're going to have a Latif game, I almost feel like you have to go in there knowing, hey, TJ is going to play. And these are the things that we're going to have to do with him, because he just has so much of a different skill set compared to Dylan.
And it would be, if that was a route that you chose, there would be more things to think about as defense. They need to take this out of their playbook. So this counter zone read that they like to run,
I know
there is not a chance in God's green earth that Dylan's keeping that ball.
No.
Okay.
God, no.
So, but they like to run it, and you know that he's not going to run it, that it's always going to be given to the running back.
Yes, and so you can cheat on the side, and you don't have to contain on the left if he's going to pull the. You couldn't be more right. Here's another thing though. Okay, so I was Peterson and I were watching the game, and it's 3rd and 9, and Dylan's running around, and I go, isn't it just like, I'm not a Tiffy guy, but when it's 3rd and 9 or it's 3rd and 10 or it's 3rd and 12, there is zero threat that he's going to scramble 10 yards for this first down.
No.
There is not one thought in the brain of the defense or the defensive coordinator that they have to be even concerned or cautious that, hey, if we get too far out of our zones, he's going to be able to take space, because you can close that space so much quicker because he's slow. because
Yeah.
he's really slow. And it's almost as if I don't want to say he's scared to run it, but he'd much rather throw it. He much rather throw it.
I don't know. I think
He's hesitant.
he is, and
He's hesitant.
who knows what the reason is. But man, he looks so much better when they roll him out and he's outside of it. You know, you would think standing in the pocket where you can survey, you'd be like, okay, I can go to my reads and I can see the bigger picture. It almost seems like his game right now is when they roll him out and things get sped up, he sees the field better.
Sure. But another thing too, Gare, is that
which I don't know that you'd want to be known for, you know, but
Yeah.
this isn't about Dylan. This is about what gives Nebraska the best chance to win football games on a Saturday with a quarterback that you haven't unlocked everything that he can do, or maybe you have, and that's then a different conversation.
what this boils down to is he cannot maneuver the pocket without pulling his eyes down.
Yeah. There's a lot of like fundamental things
Yes.
that shouldn't be happening 20 games in. It's I don't know. Do they have a solution with 5 games to go, or is this going to be just hold on? Just hold on.
I think you said the solution. I think it's the quick game and rolling out.
How about some toss?
I wouldn't mind that either.
Yeah.
And I also wouldn't mind if they just went back to how they used Emmett in Cincinnati and gave him the ball 24 times.
How about the offensive line? When the offensive line does their job, the quarterback is able to complement them with making the play.
Yes.
Or vice versa. I mean, but it all goes together. I mean, I think you might be the same way. We're past assigning blame. The whole breakdown of Nebraska giving up the most sacks of anybody in Power 4 is on everybody.
Yes.
Okay, everybody has to take some ownership in it.
Easily.
All right, a little bit later, Evan Bland will join us. Don and Brian, stay right there. We'll get to your calls on Outrage Monday. We'll mix in some positivity.
We will. We'll
Yeah.
find it.
My quarterback is a hell of an actor. And your team is the Monsters of the Midway. And Jimmy, thank you for hurting Daniels yesterday.
Yes.
We got him Monday night.
Great job,
they
everybody.
look like a football
Hey,
team for
hell
one
of
day.
a Sunday from this panel.
It was.
Hell of a Sunday.
Yes. Let's have a Monday on Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. All right, we're back in a volleyball state. Nebraska volleyball, the RPI, the midseason RPI seeding, all that stuff came out yesterday, and they're number 1. Then they got to play on BTN Plus again on a Sunday. They have 9 straight sweeps. They haven't gone to a fourth since Creighton back in September here. And I don't think it's been very rare that anyone has put up 20 against them in a set.
That's crazy.
But Nebraska volleyball rolls. They're the biggest show going in women's athletics, and they're making money for everybody in the Big Ten. Michigan State and Michigan, record crowds. Did you guys happen to see the graphic
Oh, yeah.
that Michigan volleyball put out to celebrate their 12,707 at Chrysler Arena?
That had to take a couple of hours to make, right?
Yeah. You would not have known that they were playing Nebraska because they changed Nebraska's jerseys from red to black, and they kind of blacked out all of the Nebraska fans that were dominating the lower bowl in Harper Murray's return to our hometown. Also, Creighton is rolling. So Creighton was number 10 in the same midseason seeding, and they've won 10 straight. So this is a volleyball state that we'll talk football. And before we get to the calls, I want to throw one thing out there. This discussion about the offensive line.
Okay.
Has there ever been this much angst towards an offensive line of a program that has the leading rusher in the Big Ten? Talk amongst yourselves as we talk to Don. Don, thanks for holding. Welcome to the show. Don, call back. Don, we left Don on hold too long. Yeah, Emmett Johnson leads the Big Ten in rushing.
But it's funny. I would love to see his yards like after contact and his average contact and how many how many guys he's made miss to do that.
So 45 of his 63 Friday night were after contact.
That's crazy. Yeah. He only carried the ball 14 times.
Well, they shut it down in the second half. I wonder. Let me ask you this, and then we're going to get to Brian here.
Okay.
What were the first 3 plays of the game Friday night?
Emmett didn't touch them. They're all passes.
They actually are what I said. Hey, let's go through the air. You know what?
You did want the air.
So
raid.
they went pass, pass, pass.
I'm trying to think.
Do you think that Nebraska? I know it's a 60-minute football game, but they're like, let's throw a knockout punch. Let's have a big play. Let's throw a big explosive play out of the box instead of running the ball for 3 yards. Let's get it for 12, and then we'll get for 20. So and said, if we get that, we'll get Minnesota on their heels. We'll get the lead. Yeah. And you know what? Then we can play with the lead, and we will announce our presence with authority.
You brought up arrogance and overconfidence. I think they probably had some arrogance and overconfidence on their first drive script. Because their first drive script has been, even though it hasn't always come out to be touchdowns, has always been really, really good. And so I think there might have been an attitude of like, hey, we step onto the field, we're up 7-0 because we have this great script. So yeah, probably they didn't think, hey, we're going to come out here and we're going to try and establish the identity we want to have the entirety of the game. They probably were thinking, oh, we're going to go out here and we're going to get up early.
Yeah. Here is Brian on the Prairie Flower Casino Zone hotline. Good morning, B.
Good morning, Gary.
Oh boy. How we doing?
Good morning, Gary. Doing all right. Just got some concerns, you know. Well, before I get on the team, let me thank those wonderful officials in the Big Ten for their consistency in missing calls again. I turned on the game late on Friday, and the first play I saw was the offensive guard, I believe, tackling Fiona Davis from behind when he was about to tackle a running back. And I noticed that a few times during the game that Minnesota get to tackle our defensive players or hold them, and the referees don't call that. But get past that because Minnesota did handle us, gave us, kicked our butts pretty good. But the issues I see is like when it comes to offensive line, when you were bringing up like that counter play, don't you need rhythm for your offensive line? They need to have a collective rhythm to be able to run those plays. They have to be able to almost be like a dance group, like the 49ers used to be when they had those. Yeah. I don't see that from our offensive linemen. And like either you're going to be overpowering or big men like Michigan or like Michigan or Minnesota and overpower, or you'll use those offensive linemen that like the 49ers used to use with Bill Walsh that can move. And I don't see neither from ours. So I'm like, what is going on in practice to where they're not in rhythm?
Yeah. No.
doesn't match, like you said, the offensive system that we had during the game. I almost feel like he just came at Nebraska to draw other quarterbacks and say, "Hey, we can get 4 stars and 5 stars to come here."
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Like
Great point.
Yeah, it's
that's how I feel about it.
There's not a lot of athleticism on the offensive line, and then you throw in there's some bad technique. It's a combination of, if you had, if let's say Nebraska has a 5-star quarterback, okay, which they do,
They do.
Okay.
but he needs to play like a 5-star. You would think that you could overcome some of the poor offensive line play because a 5-star offensive line can make a 3-star quarterback or a 3-star running back look like an All-American.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just not,
Yeah,
they're not in synchronization. The headsets to the
That
helmets, and I don't know what the
Dylan.
disconnect is.
Dylan, if he's going to be a slow quarterback nowadays, where the game is going to, and I would say it doesn't even matter what color you are. You have to be mobile. You have to be able to move. Unless you are Joe Burrow, okay,
Mhm.
as a quarterback that's going to be in the pocket, I don't see how he's going to survive because he's not quick with the ball getting out of his hand like
Yep.
Joe Burrow. He doesn't process as quick. So he needs some mobility to help
Yeah.
him out.
But
That's why people want to see TJ.
you know, Brian, too, though, to your point, like you talk about Burrow, I still think Burrow could scramble for a first down if it's 3rd and 10.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like he still has
didn't wanna bring
that
that up.
too. Like it's I mean, it's a whole other level of being immobile in a way. It's
But you
not
know,
just he's slow.
If you you keep comparing him to Patrick Mahomes. Even Patrick Mahomes moves faster than him.
Yes.
Yeah, he does.
Okay,
He
so
does.
I'm like, I haven't seen the movement of the feet, and I don't see that pass downfield, the deep pass downfield. I don't see it. And I would love if you stop, please, trying to run Andy Reid's plays for Travis Kelce with our tight ends. But we don't have it. Travis Kelce on our team, and now do we have Taylor Swift up in the stands since game 1. That's it.
B, thank you. Great call. Great to hear from you as always.
It was a great call, and he's right. And for me, I've defended the immobility of Dylan because in the past he's still getting the ball out pretty quickly. Against Maryland, his time to target was 2.67. His time to target against Minnesota was 3.35. That's disgusting. That's disgusting. That you cannot hold on to the ball for 3.5 seconds in college football, especially when you don't have the speed that he has. And I want to go back to
Okay, so with that
go
said,
ahead.
you know that you have a propensity to hold on to the football. You know you have a propensity that pocket's going to collapse because you've got bull rushers coming and 5 guys up front are not in sync.
Yeah.
So how long should your routes be of your wide receivers?
Short, almost comparable to what they were running with Cincinnati. Like Danke should be running a curl or running a hitch or running something where it's just a quick. All right, maybe I look real quick one way to see if off the line Isaiah Hunter got a jump and maybe he can be deep downfield or maybe he's going to be able to make his break. But if he doesn't get the break off the line, then yeah, I'm turning the other way. And I know that they did it with Jamal Banks last year, especially in that USC game where they shortened up these routes. And so because last year, the run game, they were using kind of the quick pass game as an extension of the run game, right? They didn't do that. They didn't do that. And like back to what you said a couple segments ago, and you're right. Based on how Dylan has played, even the last 3 games, they need to handcuff him a little bit, and they need to. The menu needs to be shorter, okay? But that is the frustrating part of the Dylan Raiola experience because he should have the ability to not have to handcuff in order for you to have a successful offense. You should be handcuffing 3-star quarterbacks. You should be handcuffing quarterbacks that don't have good arms. You should be handcuffing quarterbacks where it's clear that they don't have certain abilities. Dylan, in terms of throwing the football, should have all of the abilities where it's not even discussion to handcuff him. And
But we're now seeing too many. The 2 passes, the key. Those have to be completed.
And you got to throw the fade out of the playbook. You cannot run a fade anymore.
Well,
you can't.
I know they can't. I know what you're saying, but then I look at Friday night and I'm like, God, there were a couple that were there that you just got. You have to complete that pass, And it's if you're
Yeah.
asking Drake Lindsay in his 7th game to make that, you're like, okay. Now, Lindsay's not super mobile, but they I mean, they didn't respect Nebraska's pass rush. There were a
No.
lot of times they had an empty backfield. Okay, so they're like, no one's going to touch him. He only got touched twice
I
in the pocket. But you're further along that there are some passes in the route tree that consistently you have to be able to complete. But I don't know. It almost felt like Nebraska didn't have a game plan for Minnesota. They had a game plan just to have a game plan. Like they did not play to the strengths and weaknesses of the opposition. And then in game, adjusting of, okay, this isn't working. This is what we have to go to because we've seen it.
Sure.
There were no like pet plays that set up something later in the game. It was a hodgepodge of, oh my God, we don't have plan B because we're getting physically manhandled up front. And I have no idea what's going to happen on this play. I'm going to call it and I'm going to hope that we get an extra second to, execute it.
You were there. How many times did they set up in the gun and have a tight end to the right? And then they sent a guy in motion and then they just ran an inside zone.
Yeah.
Like they just they were just running a lot. Like they weren't getting creative. And also too, so after, I think it was the Michigan State game where Dana went on the microphone and he goes, I told Dylan, look off Isaiah look off all the other routes and just go to Isaiah quicker. You should throw to because he's the hot guy. He has the hot hand. He's playing the best. He's winning the routes. So don't forget about your progression. Just get it to the hot guy. And everybody goes, oh my God, Dana has feel for the game. That's feel. That's advanced stuff. You had a hot guy in Emmett Johnson. How do you not put that ball back in his hands? Where did the feel for the game go? Because the feel for the game goes, all right, we're going to stop dropping this guy back 5 steps and having him sit in a pocket that's clearly collapsing. And we're actually just going to make sure the dude who's making everybody miss on this field is the one who are making the plays.
Yeah, it just felt like Holgerson had no feel for the game because
Zero.
Emmett runs for 12, and all of a sudden you can feel like, okay, Nebraska blocked well. They got a nice run, and then they went to throw it on first down. After they had some success running on first down Friday night. They threw it on first down, and it completely stunted that drive. Then they went another pass, and the drive was over.
And then what did they do after the 98-yard touchdown? They go ahead and they throw the ball 3 times.
Yep. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll finish the hour with some calls with all of you. A couple lines open if you'd like to join the conversation on Outrage Monday. 2 weeks from the start of basketball season.
Yay.
I'm waiting for do you think Rink Mass could block?
Maybe Bearcat.
Where's the depth? We're about to find out on the offensive line. We'll get a quick update. And I thought one of the first outrages would be about Pritchett. They're like, what a wild night.
What a stupid night.
One of the worst nights of Husker football in a long time with everything that went on in that game. All right, we're back with more Gary and Matt after this in 1620 The Zone. And back to the phones we go. Here is Ronald. Good morning, Ronald. Ronald, please call back. Let's talk to Kurt. Hello, Kurt.
Morning, guys. Hey, earlier you touched on the quarterback room and how they handle that, the politics.
Mhm.
Kind of reminiscent of the Adrian Martinez situation where you had your number one guy and you weren't going to let him go sink or swim. So, what do you think they're talking about down there? Thanks a lot.
I think they're probably talking about ways that they can use Dylan's skill in a better way, in a better fashion. I highly doubt that they are having a conversation of, hey, let's make a switch. I think they're more so what you were alluding to toward, Gary. They're having a combo of, okay, how do we shore up this offensive line? How do we shore up the play calling? How can we get the ball out quicker? I don't think that they are currently having a combo being like, hey, do we go to TJ? You know, maybe they have the combo of, hey, do we do a TJ package or here or there? I don't know. That's me speculating, but I highly doubt they're having a quarterback controversy combo.
Here is Don on the Prairie Flower Casino Zone hotline. Good morning, Don.
Hey, good morning, guys. Love the show.
Thank you, sir.
You know, a lot of takes here. Earlier you talked about how Dylan's getting blindsided. I don't know if you really meant that. I've watched the games, you know, and I don't feel like he's really getting like blindsided. I think he has difficulty. I don't know if his peripheral vision is where it needs to be, or if he just doesn't have the wherewithal to step up in the pocket when he needs to step up. I mean, this guy, the Nebraska way, to be honest with you, is not to just take a sack. He's got a long tradition of quarterbacks breaking tackles. I'd like somebody to tell me when's the last time Dylan Raiola broke a tackle. I don't know if his high school career, if his dad ever set him up to really be challenged. I think he probably went to schools that had a lot of success, a lot of good O-line, and a lot of big-time receivers with the stats that he put up, and that level of competition he must have. I don't know how many times in his high school career he's got sacked, but this kid, and he is a kid, he literally looks scared back there. And sports, I don't care what sport you're playing, it's all about confidence. And this team right now, with the result on Friday, is playing with like no confidence. So we got some big problems here in these last 5 games. And then just a couple more. I don't want to take up too much time, but the offensive coordinator clearly has no patience. To me, it was so clear. The most motivated player and probably the most skillful player on the field on Friday night was Emmett Johnson. You give the guy the ball 40 times. If that's what it takes to win, you give him the ball. The guy averaged over 4.5 yards a carry with a, so-so offensive line. Give him the damn ball. That's all I got. Thanks, guys.
Don, thank you. Let's get one more here. We'll get these on the other hour in the response to this. Hello, Mike. You're the final call of the hour. Good morning. Our phones suck. Okay, that's just unacceptable. Like Friday night's performance, our phones here at NRG and 1620, unacceptable, especially on a morning like this. We apologize to everybody that maybe there was a phone. But
Absolutely.
Had some good callers with some good stuff.
402-951-1620.
Thanks for calling, guys.
The part, back to the confidence part, you can see that, and I think that would be any of us that were in that situation where you have no idea on every single snap how much time you're going to have to throw. So Nebraska needs to help Dylan. Okay. We thought we'd be at a point where Dylan would be helping Nebraska right now.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. Nebraska needs to help Dylan. That's okay to say that out loud. You know what? If you're uncomfortable with that as the quarterback, that they need to help me more than I can help them right now, then I don't know. It's a team game. I'm not saying that he's like that, but people are not in sync. It's almost like the OC,
They aren't in sync.
the offensive line, the quarterback, the wide receivers, the running back are all playing different games. Okay. And then they're going to get like every 3 or 4 plays, they're all going to be on the same they're on the same plane and something happens. But it can't be, you can't live in a world where, hey, Dylan, go make a play. Okay. Hey, Isaiah, go make a play. Hey, Emmett, make a lot of plays, please. blank, go make a play. Hey, Lindenberg, just be consistent, okay? When we throw the ball, catch it, don't drop it. Turn upfield, get us 20, and we move the sticks.
They weren't cohesive. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
There
That's a
was
good word.
there was
That's the
no cohesion against Minnesota.
No. But the confidence, yeah, the body language will be very interesting on Saturday.
Yeah.
Because again, you can quickly wash it away and go, bad night at the office, or it's, yeah, we got exposed, and how do we get out of this?
Well,
I mean, it's a combination of both, because I think there is part you can have a bad night at the office. That's why you get to play right away again.
Yeah.
But you can't dingle and dangle on Saturday and mess around with Northwestern. It has to be, I'm not saying you're going to get there, the 56-7.
Sure.
But
sure.
it has to be more than a one-score game, and it has to look good. The optics will be about as right there with the result on Saturday.
You have to look fast and motivated.
Yep. All right, halftime. Evan Bland's going to join us coming up at 8:30. If you watch the game in person or on TV, I got a question for you about watching that Nebraska football team play when we come back on Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. All right, regularly scheduled media briefing for Matt Rule coming up at 11:30. Connor Happer Show will carry that like they usually do. Now that the head coach had a couple of days to look over things, we'll tune in for that coming up at 11:30. Before we get to some calls, some emails, and we get into the chat room, I do want to send out on behalf of myself, everybody that is in the high school athletic community, Elkhorn community, on behalf of the radio station. We did Elkhorn North and Gretna East on Thursday Night Football the other night. And around the Elkhorn North football program, they've been without their head coach, Sam Stanley, who is a great person. He's always been great to me. We have great conversations. And then he is a really good football coach for the young men that play at Elkhorn North or that he coached when he was at Elkhorn South. Him and his wife, Steph. So they have two children. And last November, they welcomed in twins.
Oh.
And it was a cool moment. And I know Sam was super, super excited. But almost from the jump, and his twins were born premature, he missed a playoff game because there were some complications with Grant. Grant had a couple of open heart surgeries. One of his twins passed away. And so Thursday night, both Gretna East and Elkhorn North, after that game, they all took a knee at midfield and prayed for the Stanley family, and Grant passed away. So on my page, and you can find it elsewhere, there is a GoFundMe for the Stanley family, who they will be burying one of their twins, Grant, who had a hell of a fight for almost a year. He was up against it from the jump, and so our hearts go out to the Stanley family. I know the Elkhorn North community and the football program. They play again this Thursday night against Bennington, but I know everybody is, things are a little bit heavy out in the Elkhorn community. So
We just reposted your deal that
Thank you.
posted.
So keep the Stanley family in your prayers. That's him and his wife Steph and their other two children, and then the other twin that is doing well. But Grant was a hell of a fighter and kind of emulated everything that Coach Stanley preaches to his kids that play football for him at Elkhorn North. All right, tough to transition away from that, but I wanted to mention that, and anything you can do to help.
And I went ahead, Gary, you have it on your Twitter page. I just retweeted it as well at Matt McMedia, and I'll go ahead and make a donation. And they've already done a great job. Almost $10,000 have been raised, so it's incredible to see the community.
Watching that game on Friday night, I know I'm just opening up myself here. If I would have said, I think Scott Frost is coaching that game, what would you guys have said?
I wouldn't have disagreed. I wouldn't have disagreed.
I thought about that in real time watching the game, of the way the game was unfolding, and
that name was uttered where
not
it was.
making real time adjustments. This isn't a knock on Scott Frost. It's just that kind of game was the Scott Frost era, and those kind of games haven't happened very often in the Matt Rule era, but they happened again when you're thinking, man, you're now into year number 3. You're getting ready for game number 7. Turn the corner. Yeah, if I would have told you that Scott Frost was coaching that game, not Matt Rule, would you go, yeah? I could kind of see that.
Because the Scott Frost era to me can just be described as not capitalizing on certain advantages, and also giving the other team, certain opportunities to capitalize on stuff. And we were talking off air, like, PJ Fleck goes ahead and punts it on 4th and inches. And you're like, oh my God, okay, they're gonna give this explosive offense the ball back. Thank you. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna score. Thank you for giving us the ball back. They go ahead, they have the great punt, the incredible punt by Archie Wilson. You're on the 2-yard line. My immediate thought wasn't, oh, they're gonna go 98 yards down the field and score a touchdown. My immediate thought was, all right, Tommy Hill part 2. Like, go ahead and get a safety, go ahead and get a pick 6. Like, that's what Matt Rule and his staff, even dating back to last year, had been able to do.
Well, when Fleck punted, he said, we're going to play Big Ten football. When Nebraska punted, they said, we're going to play Big Ten football because we're going to pin you down there, and then we're going to get good field position and maybe get something kickstarted. But yet Minnesota played Big Ten football, 14 plays, 98 yards, 8.5 minutes. I don't have any belief right now the offense can do that. I believe that Nebraska's offense can score a 40-yard touchdown, a 50-yard touchdown. They can score from 30 out. But in terms of an extended drive downfield where it involves getting into the red zone, where they're only scoring at touchdowns at a 56% clip, I have no faith in that. But Friday night was an identity game.
Oh, yeah.
And one team has an identity. Doesn't mean you're going to go unbeaten or be a playoff team. It means that week to week, you know what's good. And their identity had not been that way all year. They had been different from the previous Fleck teams. They all of a sudden they found their identity again. They played an identity game, and Nebraska is struggling to find a true identity this far into the season. They think they have it. They like some of the stuff that they have. And then they're like, no, that's not us. Let's don't do that.
Well,
let's don't do what Purdue did against them and have success. Let's do what Nebraska does.
Well, that's the thing where it comes to, are you surprised? Would you be surprised if I told you that Scott Frost was coaching this game? Like, that's what it is. It's not about, other Big Ten teams did this against Minnesota, or this is how the conference attack teams like this. It's no, how we attack it. This is how we're going to go about it. And then you kind of talk about the overconfidence and stuff like that. I'll ask you, and you don't have to answer, and Jimmy, maybe you want to answer it, but I'll just ask this general question. Do you think Nebraska could go 14 consecutive plays without committing a penalty or giving up a sack?
That was easy.
I don't think they can. I truly do not think that Nebraska can go 14 plays without having some sort of negative play that absolutely tears up the game plan and has them out of their reach.
Go one further where I was. The question that was uttered after that drive is, how come we can't do that?
Yeah.
John says, if not Frost, then it looked like Satterfield was calling plays. They do still have the Satterfield deep ball element of this offense that has not gone away.
The Satterfield deep ball, which is just not completed.
Michael writes in about Nebraska's offense into the Equitable Bank inbox. Gary or Matt at 1620thezone.com. We as fans do not see practice every day, so maybe Dylan is a lot better than TJ. If that is not the case, then do you think it would be beneficial to put TJ in for 2 to 4 series? The best friend of a struggling O-line is a mobile quarterback. Do you think that could help the team win, or do you think it's cause for more dysfunction among the team than it's worth? That's a question that was asked earlier.
I want to go to the chat here. Ed Foley. I don't think it's the actual Ed Foley in the YouTube
You never
chat.
know.
Goes year 3.
Hey, Mike Eckler had a good night. Other than Ja'Cory Barney, quit running backwards.
Yeah. Well, he tries to be, you said it, he tries to be Tyreek Hill. You're not Tyreek Hill. You're Tariq Cohen. Okay? Don't do that.
It is kind of a nice thing that you can kick field goals and you don't worry about them. Hopefully that stays the same.
Isn't it? It's almost turned into like Kyle Cunanan. Like, people don't know his name, and that's a good thing because he hasn't missed anything. He's almost turned into like the long snapper. Like, I think if you told people, like, what's Cunanan's number? I don't think anybody could tell you what number that guy wears. Which, by the way, 91, kind of interesting for a kicker to be in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's a little different. Ed Foley, though, writes, year 3, and Rule still is getting humbled by Big Ten coaches and is still clueless how to beat them when he said after previous losses, he knows what it takes to win them now. I don't know. It's you brought in a coach that didn't have Big Ten experience, and I do think that it was prevalent in his first year that, hey, okay, this is you actually have to do this. You actually have to coach in the conference to know what it's about. But now we're in year 3. Like, there should never be a disconnect of like how the conference plays and how you're supposed to win in the conference.
Okay, let's attack this a little bit differently. And you know, rule is the conversation. And Nebraska's 5-2. A reminder that you had a horrible loss. Also a reminder that you were 5-1 before that game. People lose in college football. Like he's got a week where he's got to handle this. Where, guys, we aren't horrible. Okay,
Yes.
we're not great, but we're not horrible. You have to be cognizant of the noise after a game like that, but you can't be consumed by the noise. Listen, acknowledge it, move forward. What is preventing Matt Rule at Nebraska, not Matt Rule year 3, Temple, Baylor, whatever, of breaking through the glass ceiling? You get to 5. Why can't you get to 6 and then to 7 and then to 8?
Yeah.
Why is it so difficult? It's easy. I think it's easy for Matt Rule to get to 5. Death taxes, and you're going to have 5 wins at Nebraska under Matt Rule before November 1.
Yeah.
But, and those happen in the first half of the season. Then what happens when you get to 5? That there is no other stat you're going to hear today that will blow your mind than the fact that once Rule gets to 5, he's 1-10 after that. Okay, for whatever game, once you get to 5, whether it be in your 5th game, your 6th game, your 7th game, once you get to 5, 1-10 after that. There's the other part of he's got a nice record in the first half, but what happens in the second half where you are 7 games below 500?
Well, let me read this comment.
So what prevents this program in dealing? How do you manage success? Like all of a sudden, you're winning, you feel good, but then you can't go, you know what, let's just keep this rolling. Why does it take something like this to knock you down, and then you're all of a sudden in response mode again?
Okay. I think it's the combination of two things.
Thank you for allowing me to go deep there.
No, you're good, because I'll go deeper here. It's a combination of two things. It's number one, when you go from 5 to 6, that's a big game, right? To go from 5 wins to 6 wins is a big jump. To go to 6 to 7 is a big jump. To go from 7 to 8 is a big jump. Those games get bigger, right? And they get more important, and the stakes get higher. Well, what is Matt Rule's message? And I've never always agreed with this. His message has always been, these are going to be 1-score games. It's gonna come down to one play. We got to be ready for a war. We got to be. These are really, really good teams. We're gonna be in it at the very, very end. And I've always liked Curt Cignetti's message of, you guys are better. You guys are just more dominant. You're just more physical. You're going to go out there and kick their ass. Because when you get into the higher stakes, when the stakes get higher, and then the message is, man, it's gonna be really close, and it's gonna come down to one play, and it's gonna be right to the wire. Nerves, understandably, would probably go up.
If you. And this is the NFL model, so games are going to be close, but there is the part of developing killer instinct.
Yes.
Okay, where let's beat them up in the first 15 minutes, and then hey, let's be eating hot dogs later in the game.
Yeah.
Instead of, okay, we're going to tippy-toe into this because we know it's going to be a 4-quarter game. Why not come in and say, you know what? Let's don't make it a 4-quarter game. Let's finish this thing before halftime.
Bang.
Because once you get to halftime, you want another stat?
Yeah.
I'll let you research this while I read Tom's email.
Okay.
And anybody else, and you may have the numbers right off the top of your head, because I do, but I want your reaction.
Okay.
Look at the third quarter scoring against Power 4 teams. It'll remind you of the 90s Nebraska. Tom writes in. Good morning, Gare. Good morning. Why in years past is 5-2? This is along the lines of what we were just talking about. How's 5-2 seem like a pretty good spot for Nebraska to be in? Let's not forget 2009 5-3 start, make the Big 12 championship. 2012 start 4-2, make the Big 10 championship. 2013 start 5-2, finish 9-4. Is 5-2 now what people expected the record to be at this point? Great question. I think the manner in which it happened, because there were a lot of us that said, okay, I guess I'm doing the schedule. Past history tells me Minnesota up there always beats Nebraska, and it's Fleck.
Yeah.
So I think that it happened again, the way it happened, but there has not been a game between Nebraska and Minnesota where it's been this one-sided from the physicality part.
No.
And you thought you were past that.
You thought you were way past that.
Whereas after the Minnesota game, fans are acting like the sky is falling. I understand how it looked on Friday night, but have we as fans been through so much? We have little faith in this program as a whole. Lots of ball left this season, but it's so frustrating that one game can flip our feel on the season so fast. We'd love to hear your thoughts. I said this yesterday on the Average Joe show. When you have nights like Friday night, you have this combustion of the fans that have been in the media that cover the program for the last 10 to 15 years, and then the fans that this is year 3.
Yes.
Okay. So when you have games like that, the result and the manner in which it's played, you have a collision
Big time.
of things that Tom just said are absolutely right. But that can only be changed by how you respond to it, saying, guys, just a bad night. We had a bad night. We got a Minnesota problem. We'll figure it out. We don't play him for 2 years. And we're back to winning football games. They might not be pretty, but that's the way this year is going to be. And let's try and win as many as possible.
All right, I got it.
All right.
It's 52-7.
Thank you.
It's 52-7 in the third quarter.
Third quarter against Power 4 teams.
Real quick, before you go to the phone, I feel like there hasn't been a war. I don't want to call it a war, but I've had combos where I feel like I've been more so on the
this is a new era. This is year 3. This is a new coaching staff.
Mhm.
I want to ignore the past. And I talk to people who are on the opposite end where it's like, it's still Nebraska. It doesn't matter who the coach is. And I think up to this point, the people who thought, hey, this is a new era, these things are
Yeah.
different, were winning or were right.
Mhm.
And then this game and how it happened, and you're spot on. It's not that just they lost to Minnesota, it's the way they lost to Minnesota. Just kind of confirms to the people who thought, oh, same old, same old.
Yeah, there's another thing that we may have to address. Is this team the same team that played at Arrowhead?
I think away from Emmett Johnson, yeah.
Here is Nathan. Good morning, Nathan.
Hey guys, our prayers go out. It definitely makes me feel foolish for caring about football with stuff like that going on in the real world. But I do have a question about coaching. So why do coaches have the need to feel that they're so dang special or smart? Like, why can't we just do what works? It's almost like you guys remember The Princess Bride, right?
Mm-hmm.
The battle of wits over
Wonderful
the
film.
poison.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost as if Holgerson is like, you know what? Clearly, it's so simple that if I just do what worked against Maryland, the other side will think I'm obviously a fool would prepare for that. So I have to not do what worked at Maryland with the quick game, and because I'm so much smarter. And it's like, well, why didn't you just do what worked? Like against Maryland, against their Russians, that quick game was working really well. And I think it would have worked against Minnesota, but we didn't even really try it. And we didn't even try that one screen that's worked every time it's done until the fourth quarter when the game was out of hand. I just don't understand why coaches have to feel so dang intelligent that they out intelligent and smart themselves. And it's really, really frustrating.
Yep.
And then my other point is that I think that Matt Rule and the whole team owes millions of girls around the world an apology for perpetuating the horrible stereotype that wearing pink makes you soft.
All right, Nathan. Took until 8:20 to have a
I feel
reference to a uniform.
I'm-
You have to
I'm-
admit, that
I'm-
is impressive. I
I'm
expected
proud of
earlier.
that. I'm proud of us. I'm proud of that. The fact that
It
it
looked
took us
good.
2 hours and 20 minutes. It looked great.
It looked good. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not engaging this conversation. This is a question for Rule today, and not, hey, why does Holgerson think he's smarter than everybody else and they got the big brains in the room? I would like to know, and Rule said this after the game, but now that you go back and watch it, there is no way that they plan to be disrupted so much up front that they didn't go, okay, hey, Dana, put together a game plan because Minnesota's going to wreck us. So Anthony Smith on this play is going to blow us up, and it's going to throw everything off. And you know our quarterback is not good when the play breaks down. So can you call a play that we pull out of our ass? Oh, yeah, I will. Dylan, you're going to need to scramble, and then you're going to get tripped up. And as you're falling, just fling it up, and let's pray that it's not a pick six and that one of our guys come down with it. I wonder if the fact that they got disrupted so badly up front just eliminated everything, and then you're on skates and things that make sense don't make sense.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
During the course of a game,
Yeah.
because you have no faith whatsoever. You've lost your guard, you've lost your tackle, that anything you call is not going to get somebody killed. And I'd hate to have that on my tab.
Well, here's the thing, Garrett, too. Like when they played, when they were gearing up for the Michigan game, they thought, oh, this Michigan D line isn't what it used to be. And that our line, or they thought that their O line was going to do a lot better than what they played against Michigan. And I don't want to say they didn't. I think they respected Michigan, but they weren't. They knew they thought they weren't the world beaters of what they once were. This is now the second time where it's like you've clearly overestimated your ability to protect the quarterback.
Yeah, I didn't like Rule. Rule said some of the same language he said after Indiana about not seeing this coming.
But I mean, like, so I listened to Dylan's presser too, which was 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which I think is incredibly appropriate. He was just like, yeah, we got our butts beat. Like, I know it's a lot of the same language, and I didn't really pick up on that because what is he supposed to say?
at some points during that, right? Like I have to go back and I got to watch the film. I got to watch
Yeah.
the tape. Like it's just one of those things where you got your ass beat.
All right, BJ and Eric, stay right there. Let's hope the phones work. We'll get to you in just a moment, and then we will get to Evan Bland with his thoughts. Nebraska's 5-2. They take on a Northwestern team that's won 4 in a row as a 7.5-point favorite for an 11 a.m. kick. That all of a sudden seems like a big, big game.
Yeah,
Big game.
a massive game.
Big game on FS1.
11 a.m.
Do we get Brando again?
No, God, no,
Ooh.
no, stop.
We'll find out shortly.
I also too.
no,
it-
because
this
he's
game-
at Oregon
hey,
this weekend.
This game was on Big Fox.
He had
and
post.
it was terribly produced. Terribly produced. Dylan Raiola, the opening shot, the number one guy, your star quarterback. They go, here's his introduction. Here are his stats. And they got Luke Lindenmeyer standing in on the graphic. What are you doing? You've had all day to prepare for that one shot when the quarterback runs out of the field, and you got the tight end as opposed to the quarterback on it.
Thank you.
I said to get that out. That made me mad.
We're back with more of Gary and Matt after this in 1620 The Zone.
Hey, game day is back in Lincoln after the Huskers have been on the road for a couple of weeks. That means that the Blur tailgates are back. You can go to 1620thezone.com and enter for your chance to win 2 tickets to the Ultimate Blur tailgate party, Nebraska versus Northwestern on November 25th in Lincoln. We go to the YouTube comments. A good comment here by Radman. This was actually made a little bit ago. It was like made 30 minutes ago, but I've had it bookmarked here because I really like it. Goes, Rule is phenomenal with infrastructure, organization skills, and building a culture. He's an average game coach. He just doesn't have that variable to win big. Look at his resume. The reason I like this is because we're going to find out how good the culture is on Saturday. Like if that first sentence is true, that he's phenomenal at building that infrastructure, that's like the Northwestern game is going to be the hey, prove it game. Can you come back and can you, after a terrible, terrible loss?
I got a 5-game vibe check.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, you climb the mountain, and when it gets treacherous, what do you do on the mountain? I mean, it's tough to get to the top of the mountain.
It is.
But yeah, the in-game stuff is something that is not new. It's now 2 times in his career as the head coach at Nebraska that game in particular, that building reminds you that
Sure.
the in-game stuff is still choppy.
I know they had to take it, but they took another second half timeout in the third quarter
Well,
when they're trailing. I know they had to take it,
yeah,
but the fact that
It was
you
almost like in basketball.
it was,
Yeah.
it was,
I think you texted me like right away.
because that's
Yeah.
been my thing. But here's the difference.
They
though.
were sliding, man.
My argument though against that, it's embarrassing that it had to even happen.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they were able to go up to that point 60 yards and run it down your throat to the point where you had to burn a timeout in the second half and when you're trailing, that's embarrassing.
Here is BJ. Good morning, BJ.
Hello?
Yeah. You're on with us.
Hello?
Yep.
Hey.
Oh, hi. Sorry, Gary.
You're good.
Hey, I want to say my thoughts go out to the Stanley family, and also I hope Schmitty found his dog. I know he lost
Yeah.
it yesterday.
Yeah. So Gertie, his German Shepherd, got out late Saturday night. 98th and Yankee Hill areas where the Schmidts live in Lincoln. They think he's in a cornfield. They have him chipped. So, but they think he's in a cornfield. Yeah. They took it. Schmitty told me this morning, he took his bed and some food out on the edge of the cornfield. So they're hoping that he will come home. But thank you. Thank you, BJ.
Yeah, you bet. And also, I wanted to make a comment, if I may. Matt Rule he's been pretty popular here with his messaging. I mean, I think fans like him. I mean, you read the tea leaves, he seems like a good guy, but the actual in-game coaching these first 3 years is much to be desired, in my opinion. Not just like I don't think we've turned a corner. Earlier you talked about this game feeling like a Scott Frost game. To me, it felt like a Matt Rule game. There's nothing the first few seasons here that made me think he's that much better than Scott Frost. I mean, the staff makes more money. He makes more money. There's more money into the program. But the actual in-game strategic tactical coaching just hasn't been there, and it's very frustrating. And one more thing I want to ask you, do you think our offensive line is one of the bottom 3 in the Big Ten? And if so, going forward into later October and November, do you think that we can actually win another 2 games with an offensive line playing this poorly?
Yeah.
And thank you, Gary.
BJ, thanks for the call. I will put him at the bottom because it's unacceptable that you lead the country in allowing sacks.
Yeah.
Now it gets a little bit uncomfortable because you have no Spindler. And if there was one constant this year, at least Rocco was basically the same guy every game.
Yes.
So you got to find a guard. The thing about the offensive line is essentially the same 5 have played every snap for the last few weeks. You haven't really started to develop depth. I also wonder, I brought it up to you about the situation with the guard spot being open, and we don't know if Rocco ever play again at Nebraska. I mean, his eligibility would be up, but that hand injury is scary. Is Turner Corcoran? Is Turner Corcoran more valuable to Nebraska playing guard, or in his current role where he's an extra blocker? And then could Evans play guard and Sledge play center, or is that too much of a disruption with the way the offense is going right now? I mean, there's some key decisions that have to be made before the Northwestern game. But here's the really uncomfortable part is they don't have a lot of options.
No.
The depth that we thought was there hasn't really been shown off because guys haven't played much.
This is so
Teddy got into the game once Pritchett was gone, and
yeah.
but it was Teddy doesn't look like what he looked like at the beginning of the year. They're all over the map. There has to be a fall guy for the offensive line not being good this year. And it can't just be swept under the rug and say, hey, we'll go get better players, because the current players, the technique is bad. Like there's now coaching stuff that you could go, okay, that shouldn't be happening with guys that are older, because this is a little bit of an older offensive line. Do I think there are a couple of more wins on the schedule? Yes and no. But I do say more yes. There is a part of me, because of the way things still line up, that Nebraska had a bad night at the office, and the things that are still plaguing Nebraska will continue to plague Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, can they make a play or two more to win those games? But if they go up against somebody again that just lines it up and says, we're going to beat you up one-on-one, then I really worry.
I think that
I was a 9-3 guy.
Yeah.
Probably today I'm 8-4.
I'm an 8-4 guy that was still 8-4. Okay. And let's talk about because I'm going to be real with you, Gary. I don't know what they're going to do. Okay. I don't know if they're going to put Corcoran in that guard. I don't know if they're going to move in Evans. I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is this. I think it's incredibly damning that one injury on the offensive line completely shuffles the deck and makes you think, holy crap, we're screwed.
Yeah.
Like, you're the University of Nebraska. You have a lot of resources. One injury on the O-line should not completely deteriorate what you're trying to do on that front. And Sam Sledge has been at Nebraska. This is his third year. Okay. I know he's a backup, but what do they talk about in their plan? They've said this so many times. We want to bring a young guy in, redshirt him. Then his second year, he's going to be the backup. And then his third year is going to be a starter. Well, he's in his third year. Yeah. So are you practicing your development plan?
Well, and where is Grant Bricks in this kind of conversation? Yes. Here is Eric. Good morning, Eric. Welcome to Gary and Matt.
All right, guys. I got a lot for you.
All right.
Beautiful.
First of
Rapid
all,
fire.
I don't know if I'm the first one to say it. I hope I am. But the Elijah Pritchett project in Nebraska is done. That dude can go on his wayside. I've seen him play on several occasions, and I'm sorry, he couldn't block a fence post. Okay? First of all, let's go ahead and go and get us 5 walk-on offensive linemen and let them play. They'd have more passion. They'd have more skill. They'd have more energy. And not to completely change the subject, but can we give a little love to my Denver Broncos for accomplishing something that's never been done in the NFL? I will hang up and listen. Thank you, guys.
I'll give your Broncos love. Because the Broncos should have beaten the Indianapolis Colts earlier in the year, and it was an absolute calamity that they lost that game. So kudos to them for coming back and winning a game that they weren't supposed to. As for having 5 walk-on offensive
well, let's talk
linemen,
about the Sean Payton play calling.
I want to go back to the five walk-on offensive linemen, because we had a caller on Big Red Overreaction say that they should practice with 4 offensive linemen in order to simulate pressure. But I mean, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I just think I think that with Donovan Raiola, I have been a guy who has, I think I have defended him plenty. And I have said before that I think he's a good coach, and I do think he's a good coach. But this is the fact. The offensive line should be better than what it is 4 years into him being the coach. Okay? It just should be. That's just a fact. It should not be giving up the most sacks in the country. At the same time, can I read you some PFF stats?
Save them. We got to get to Evan.
Okay. Get to Evan.
We'll do it after the top of the hour. Evan Bland of the World Herald with his thoughts. He'll stop by next. By the way, Dolphin fans, Albert Breer just said no changes expected.
Ha!
So Tua and Mike McDaniel won't be benched at the same time. It's Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. All right, Nebraska back at it against Northwestern this weekend, 11 a.m. at Memorial Stadium. Back home after a 2-game road trip against a team that's won 4 in a row and has looked pretty competent over the last couple of weeks. So Nebraska Northwestern means something. Means a lot for Nebraska to bounce back as we welcome in Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald. Good morning.
Morning, guys.
All right, let's get right to this because you wrote about it right after the game. You wrote about it for today's paper. What is real, in your opinion, Friday night? That, hey, short week, Nebraska didn't handle it well. It's a one-off bad night at the office, happens in college football. Or these lingering, simmering issues on the line of scrimmage and some other things, they've been simmering, and twice they've gotten exposed in conference play.
Well, I think there are elements of both. Certainly the circumstances of playing on the road again on a short week is a factor. Like I was tired going out there on Friday, and I'm not playing a game. You can imagine what their situation's like, balancing class and everything like that. So I do think that plays a part, but there are bigger issues that have cropped up. We'll see about the offensive line today and what that looks like moving forward. But I mean, they played more than a half of football without their 2 big transfer portal additions in Rocco Spindler and Elijah Pritchett. And I think you can look at some at the coaching as well and say, what are you doing as an offense with 3 pass plays to start the game when you got the Big Ten's second leading rusher and a guy who's extremely motivated and Emmett Johnson out there ready to go? So I think there were a lot of different things that you can point at, and certainly foundationally, like to play a full game and to see Minnesota dominate both lines of scrimmage. The sacks are unsightly, of course, to channel the inner Principal Rooney from Ferris Bueller's Day Off 9 times. Like that's rough. But it was the other way too. I mean, they couldn't generate a ton on the ground when they wanted to run the ball. So a lot of issues. What I think is interesting now is I do believe some of these questions are going to be answered this weekend, because you've got a team in Northwestern that plays a pretty similar style to Minnesota. Kind of, they are what they are. They're not afraid to kind of dink and dunk. They're not under any illusion of being the greatest show on turf or anything like that. Like, they're going to be physical. We just saw them shut out Purdue. So I do think if some of these issues or for Nebraska are more chronic, we're going to see that show up next weekend. And if it may be a little bit more circumstantial to what Minnesota was last week, then maybe Nebraska comes out and wins by a couple possessions. So I do think it's going to be a little bit more revealing. We're going to get some quicker answers maybe than we usually would, just because of the type of opponent coming up in the Wildcats.
We'll have to keep tabs. Caleb Kamalafe, the running back for Northwestern, their top guy this season, he exited the third quarter with an upper body injury. So we'll see what his status is. That could be a big development for Nebraska. You said something there, Evan, revealing. I think that how I view it is Matt Rule hasn't won a ton at the University of Nebraska, but his ability to communicate and articulate the culture in which he has built at Nebraska has gotten him a lot of good grace amongst fan and the people who covered the team. Do you think that this Northwestern game could potentially expose culture for Nebraska?
Well, I mean, I feel like from what I see and hear every week and being around the program, I have felt like the culture was in a really good place. I feel like them putting the focus back on themselves, and we've talked about it on this show in recent weeks, I think, just this idea that like their goal has been to put out the best tape possible. And yeah, you adjust and strategize based on who's on the other side, but really like that driving force, that inner motivation has been to play better football. And I think that's something that has served Nebraska well. It allows them to get up for big games, but it also can kind of steady you out a little bit. I thought they bounced back well from the Michigan loss, and we're able to rally in game against Maryland in ways that we haven't seen a ton. So I think those are culture moments that show up that way. But I mean, this is certainly another week where that's put to the test, where, I mean, Minnesota, you'd probably put it right up there with
UCLA last year as probably the biggest stinkers of the Matt Rule era in terms of what the expectations were going in and what the matchup looked like on paper. And so how do those guys come back from that? Like I think you do lean back onto the stuff that's been hammered into you, the what's next mentality, the getting 1% better, all the things that they mention quite a bit when they speak to the media. Like I do think this is the kind of game where that comes out. Can you just turn to what's next and forget about what just happened? Can you have that inner motivation? Can you kind of push aside the fact that it's late October and guys are banged up and fatigued a little bit, and you're going to have to dip into your depth? Like, this is when those kind of moments show up, is in situations like this one. So I think, Northwestern, you look on the other side, they won 4 in a row and just pitched a shutout. And so they're not going to come in here and expect anything other than to win either. So it's part of the grind of the Big Ten, and I would anticipate that they would bounce back. But again, I do think this will be revealing in that sense, because this is not one of the dominant teams in the Big Ten, but it's a physical, fundamentally sound one that's going to make you play your best football to get the win.
Line of scrimmage game again. This might be one of the rare times we talk about defense today, because the offensive line and the offense as a whole is getting a lot of discussion. Your concern level that all of a sudden in the last 2 weeks, Nebraska can't get off the field on third down when they've been one of the best in the country, and they still have a good number, but Maryland and Minnesota 12 for 27 the last 2 weeks. And then to compound that, Evan, it just seems like the tackling has taken a step back. And when they're there, they can't get guys to the ground. What have you observed the last 2 weeks with defense that maybe it's not as solid as it was in the first couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's a mix. You look at, sometimes it's guys taking bad angles, like you saw on that Darius Taylor 71-yard run that flipped the field and kind of sparked Minnesota. Sometimes it's arm tackles a little bit. I think you have to look at the defense and see that it is banged up. I mean, they played the second half without Vincent Shavers, and he's a guy who brings energy and big plays. I think some of it's the concern with the defensive line that's sort of been a topic all season. I don't know that's changed or that they've acquitted themselves necessarily in that way. I kind of felt like, the Maryland matchup was actually pretty good for Nebraska's defense, in that the Terps didn't really want to run the ball that much. They were pass heavy. And I think they had a lot of success because their freshman quarterback's just really good. I kind of felt like Minnesota was not as good of a matchup, just because, they're not going to be taking deep shots down the field. Like, they are very content with running Darius Taylor for 3 and for 4 and for, dropping back Drake Lindsey for 2 beats and having him find a guy over the middle for 4 or 5. And they move down the field like that, especially in the third quarter. And so I think sometimes you can get impatient if you're Nebraska on the other side. You kind of prefer maybe to try to defend some deep balls and get guys, get opposing offenses behind the sticks. That didn't really happen. And so I think it's a challenge again this week, because Northwestern's kind of the same way. Like, they're going to run it at you and pound it and play the game that with an eye toward the fourth quarter, where some of these plays, they're not going to try to get it all at once. Yeah. They'll pound you now and know that that's going to compound later into the game. So I think that's a concern. I don't know that Nebraska's defensive line is in a spot where you can fix much right now. It kind of is what it is. You need some negative plays, and they just haven't been able to generate that lately.
Your evaluation of the protection, how much of it do you think is the quarterback not getting the ball out quick enough, and how much do you think is just the lack of protection from the offensive line?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of those things. There were moments on Friday night where I'm just like, it just felt like Dylan was holding on to the ball for too long. And sometimes he stepped up into pressure. Matt Rule said after the game, sometimes it was like the running back not picking up a blitz or not being where he needed to be as an outlet so Dylan could get the ball away. But I mean, from my vantage point in the press box Friday night, yeah, there were certainly moments where guys were running open and Dylan either didn't see them or didn't have the opportunity to see them because guys were coming after him. I think the offensive line is banged up. You had a guy starting or playing significant snaps in the middle in Tyler Kanak, who hadn't really played meaningful snaps in a game before. I thought that showed at times. You had a guy like Turner Corcoran on the edge who kind of looked like he hadn't played a ton of offensive line in games this year. Gunnar Gatula, I thought, struggled in this one more than he had. And it was against the Minnesota front that was physical, good, but they hadn't been great to this point. So I do think it's all a concern, kind of the whole operation is. And again, I go back to Northwestern, like their sack numbers aren't great, but that's a stout defense. That's a group that knows what it wants to be, that's going to get after people, that's going to be gap sound and assignment sound and all the rest. So we'll see kind of what the health status is of Rocco Spindler this week, if he can give it a go with a club or a cast on his left hand or what they want to do. But I think at some point you have to help out your line. Like if it is what it is, then call more screens, then mix in some draw plays, maybe a designed run or two from the quarterback just to give the defense something to think about. I think you need to help those guys out because they were struggling in a lot of these traditional, predictable situations on Friday.
Yeah, you mentioned the screen, and I think we were all sitting there going, okay, this would be a great time to break out the Hunter Tunnel screen. Is there anything you see that maybe it's the opposition doing that the last 2 weeks Nebraska hasn't been able to get the ball into the hands? Now, they targeted Key more Friday night than they did the previous week, but get the ball into the hands of Key and Barney. Anything in particular you see that has prevented that?
I mean, I haven't seen dominant, like, double teams, like obvious deals where they're trying to keep the ball away from either of those guys. I think some of it's just kind of how they set up the offense. And we've heard Dana Holgerson talk about it, like you want to get the ball to the guy with the hot hand. And lately, the last couple of games, that's been Isaiah Hunter, and they're continuing to target him quite a bit. Emmett Johnson's getting a strong workload, deservedly so. I think some of it too is like a lot of these games lately they have not had a ton of offensive snaps. This last week, Minnesota took up a ton of clock. We've seen that at times. Maryland, they had more opportunity, but there were a lot of games. There have been a few games, at least this year, where you're getting 50 or 60 snaps instead of 70, so you're not able to spread it around as much. But I mean, you look up at the end of the day, and it's 6 points on the board, a couple field goals where you fizzle in the red zone. Like that's just not going to get it done. So I'm sure Dana Holgerson agrees, and it's going to be interesting to see kind of how they adjust to that, because they do have more playmakers than what they've shown. And if you can't get guys like Key and Barney open traditionally, then scheme them open. We've seen that with Isaiah Hunter. There are ways that you can do that. Maybe some more crossing routes. We've seen Nebraska use Barney in sort of a sweep kind of quasi running back role in the past. Like if you feel like that's something that could happen again, get the ball in his hands that way. But it's clear that what they're trying now isn't working. The protection is inconsistent at best, and you do have guys that you can get the ball to. I think that's the task of the play caller to make that happen a little more.
Has this team, or how much has this team gotten better since they played Cincinnati, in your opinion?
Well, they've had stretches. It's been up and down, right? Like I kind of felt like through Michigan and even Michigan State, like they were on a pretty steady ascent. The defense was pretty consistent. The offense was okay, but it's not been great the last couple of weeks. I mean, they were fortunate to come back and win at Maryland when you're down, you're -3 in the turnover margin, and again, obviously, you take a big step back at Minnesota when you're more than a touchdown favorite going in. So it kind of feels like we're sliding back a little bit into that identity question that has plagued this program for so long. Like, what do you hang your hat on offensively? What are you trying to do? What would you like to do? What are plays that you can run that the opponent knows are coming, but you're still able to do it because you're that good at it? Like, I don't know that Nebraska has a lot of those plays right now. And then defensively, the last 2 years, Tony White's defense was okay. They're going to stop the run. They're going to be pretty good against the pass, and they're going to wreak some havoc. And that this year it's been a little bit wishy-washy. Sometimes they can stop the run. The pass has been pretty good, but defending the pass has been pretty decent, but not great. And so I just kind of think that's where they are. Special teams, ironically, how about that? Has been the most
Yeah.
consistent, impressive group. So there's a step forward for sure. But it's a group that I just think with new coaches and some new players, you hear Matt Rule talk about them being one of the youngest teams in the Big Ten. I think it's still a group that's trying to find what's great at, what it's most comfortable doing, and we're kind of seeing that happen in real time right now.
Evan, appreciate the conversation. Thank you very much. It'll be an interesting week. I know you'll have a handle on it, but thanks as always for our Monday chat.
Appreciate you guys. See ya.
That's
Thanks,
Evan
Evan.
Bland from the World Herald. Really good article today about the Minnesota effect. The conversation that we just had, you would think this was like the middle of September, not the middle of October.
Yeah.
I also did not think that Nebraska would go north to the Twin Cities. Key and Barney would be targeted a grand total of 3 times, and that Malachi Coleman would have more receiving yards than Key and Barney combined.
Jeez.
That's what happened on Friday night. All right, last hour, more calls, more comments. Maybe something besides Nebraska, Minnesota.
Maybe the Bears won. I at some
Well.
point I would like to say a couple words on that because
Monsters of the Midway are back.
we might be good.
You got the NFC North. Might be up for grabs.
Might be.
Oh.
Might be.
All right, last hour's upcoming on Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. All right, 2 weeks from today, college basketball begins. Exhibition games being played. You're either better or worse than you previously thought. And then you move on to the next exhibition game. Creighton beat Iowa State. Nebraska played an entertaining game against the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft this upcoming year, AJ Demancip, who went 30-7. And by the way, got home quickly.
Really?
He was there. He was pictured at kickoff in the stadium for the Holy War.
Really?
Yeah.
What, he take
what
his
great
own
television
private
that
jet
was.
with the
Well, they fly private.
yeah.
It's not a long flight.
No. So it was a fairly quick game. It was an entertaining game. But he's the real deal. I mean,
Yeah.
his first game out of the box, he put up 30.
I was actually going to ask him, is he really that good?
Oh, he's a beast.
He's
Like
long.
he didn't look like a freshman in college. Their whole roster is long. Like BYU spent good money.
Mhm.
Like their roster is well constructed. Like Creighton spent good money. Creighton has depth. Creighton's roster
Yeah.
is well constructed. But it was great to see Rink Mass back out on the floor. Man, he had that smile on. But there's no way that Nebraska goes to the NCAA tournament if he averages only 12-7-3. Going to need a little bit more out of the Dutchman. But man, keep him healthy.
Yeah.
He looked like he was having fun. He was draining threes. He ended up with 31. They're a work in progress.
Yeah. I think
They got to find somebody that off the dribble can get to the rim
okay.
because they don't really have that. They're going to blow some teams out because they're going to have a game where they're going to shoot lights out from
Sure.
3 because they have plenty of those guys. But then there's going to be a game where in conference they can't make any threes and they don't really have a second option.
Well,
So they're going to get rolled. But they'll make it entertaining this year, that's for sure.
would you be concerned about the last 4 minutes of the game type deal? Because you
No.
don't no.
Because I'll be like, BYU didn't want to show their final sets.
No, I mean
Oh,
like,
you mean like overall?
like overall, like last 4 minutes of the game where it's like
Mm.
you're close. Like they don't have the Bryce where you kind of can just give him the ball and say, hey, go and win it for us.
Yeah.
Or go and make
No,
offense.
they don't
for
have
us.
that guy yet, and they may
That's
not
bad.
have that guy.
That would be
But they
incredibly
do.
concerning.
They do have an advantage though, having Mast being a passer at the
Mhm.
5. They just don't have a lot of rim protectors.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
they just, they're gonna-
that was going to be my next
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
I'm like, do you have bangers in the paint?
Yeah.
Because you need bangers in the paint if
Yeah.
Barricade is not going to be the banger.
yeah,
in the
Nebraska basketball will be Papa Shot this year.
paint. I'm not. That doesn't sound. It sounds fun. It doesn't sound like winning basketball.
I think they're right now. I think they're appropriately placed where they were in the preseason, 12th, 13th, 14th in the Big Ten.
I think with this team, if you want one light of positivity, I definitely do think with the spacing that they are for sure made more for the type of style that Fred wants to coach.
Yes, they just have to hit those shots.
exactly.
Again, there's going to be games where they're going to be on a heater and they're going to roll teams. And there's going to be nights where they are clanging. They are building a brick house.
But what if they make them, Gary?
Well, if they make them, they're going to be good.
But what if they always make them?
Well, then they're going to surprise some people.
I don't know. It concerns me. It concerns me big time that your evaluation is that they don't have somebody who can put it on the ground because it's like,
No, put it on the floor and get to the rim.
yeah, like that is a massive concern. That'd be a massive concern for me just because this is not a team that is made to blow out,
Yeah.
these middle to upper tier teams in the Big Ten. If they're going to beat these teams in the Big Ten, that's going to be very close. You just need a guy where you go, all right, like
Yeah.
go get us 2 points.
They're not a super pretty team. They are kind of gritty. Like Frager, Hoiberg, and Jacobson are going to do some dirty work.
Mhm.
But they just they'll need to find a Juwan Gary that's just a dog that like cleans the glass and scowls at people.
Well, shouldn't Barricade be that hypothetically?
I don't know.
mean,
Maybe
he's-
it's men's athletics at Nebraska outside of wrestling. I think Nebraska football is too nice, by the way. I've said that for a couple of weeks now.
You've been begging
They
for
don't-
having a hit sticker on the
Hit
team.
sticker broke a dicker. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Nebraska doesn't have that guy. Like I was waiting on Friday night for a cut stopper for somebody to go, no, this ain't happening again. And they go and make a play and they make
Wow.
a play with vengeance. Like there's too many times this defense right now, they don't get guys to the ground.
Well,
They hold up guys
Yes.
and then it's got to be this team tackling
But-
or there's leaky yardage. They need, whether it be the guy
No.
that's running the show as the
Yeah.
quarterback, whoever, they lack the cut stopper when you can feel things are going south to say, not today, and they go and make a play. Now, Vincent Shavers is that guy, but as Evan was alluding to, and we saw that hand injury that he had surgery on. And why does everybody have a hand injury at Nebraska? Come on, Corey Campbell.
How is that his fault?
Everything we do blame everybody.
Just blame the
Outrage
strength
money. We
trainer.
blame everybody.
You know what? That I know that we haven't reached rock bottom yet because we haven't blamed the strength coach. Once we start blaming the strength coach, that is like check off the box of like everything is falling apart. You're right. They don't have anybody that scares me.
There's like defensively, they're having the last couple of weeks. They're not getting guys to the ground, and you saw Minnesota got leaky yardage.
It was so I was so PO'd, Gary. Where they would grab him, Darius Taylor at the 2-yard line, and then he ended up getting 6 yards, and it's because he just continued to churn his feet. It's like also too, like these linebackers, I feel like we don't talk about them enough. They get swallowed so many times on these blocks. When you have a weak defensive line that isn't able to impose their will and the offensive line is able to move up to the second level, you're going to need some faster, stronger linebackers that can disengage on those blocks. Marquise Watson-Trent, God bless his soul, made a couple decent plays, also got swallowed up so much in that game. I mean, some of these linebackers became non-factors for long stretches of time because they just could not fight through these blocks.
Yeah, credit to Minnesota, man. Minnesota identified Nebraska's weakness on defense and they picked on them. Like they put let's put Rex Guthrie in an uncomfortable situation, and then Donovan Jones. They got Donovan going sideline to sideline, north to south. He's a nice player.
Yeah,
he's still the sideline to sideline stuff.
He's such a good tackler. It's just the problem is,
but it's north to south tackling.
I know.
Yeah, and they got him. Minnesota had a really good game plan. I mean, it wasn't fancy. They stuck with it. They didn't try and do too much with Lindsey, but 7 of his 16 completions were 10 yards or more. Well, and they had guys that made plays. I mean, this is also the fact Dylan Raiola was dealing against a team that was out without their top 2 cornerbacks, and they had one cornerback, Brian, who was hurt during the game, but kept coming back in, and he ended up with 8 tackles. Well, they had guys that make plays. They had guys that stepped up when they needed to step up, and Minnesota had a team victory, and Nebraska had a team meltdown.
We didn't even talk about that. The 2 penalties on Jones on those big 4th downs.
And the holding one is egregious.
Oh,
that's
ridiculous.
That's a bad one. And then there's 2 more in the same running of the play.
Yeah,
but Nebraska also, outside of Keona Davis, who is on a nice little run, and there's something there. And so him and Judy have become the combo that plays the most. Nebraska defensively is making it too easy to block them.
5-11.
Yeah.
5-11.
Yeah.
Just say that. There were a couple plays where 5 was just, I think, out there to get cardio in.
Here is Andy. Good morning, Andy.
Yeah, good morning. I'm tired of this crap, dude. I mean, this offensive line has been so horrible for the last, 20-some years. It's crazy. I don't know why we can't get some right coaches in here. But, I know Raiola can't hang on to the ball forever, but I'm not sold on the dude anymore. He can't move. He's too slow. And if we had a mobile quarterback, I think we would have won that game Friday. But this is getting old, man.
I agree, Andy.
Andy, thanks for the phone call.
Here's a very frustrating part, Gary. We came into the season saying, hey, this defensive line is going to be a problem, and the linebackers might be a little small, and you might be putting a lot on the plate of the secondary. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
That was just us on the outside looking in, be like, these could be potential issues. None of them have been solved. They have played 7 games of football, and none of it has been fixed.
Yeah.
You have Winery and Davis, who have gotten better, but even them, they aren't all Big Ten guys or superstar guys or absolute game records. They're just serviceable. I mean, the fact that they've now played 7 games and you have seen almost zero improvement on that front is incredibly concerning.
There's the questions that the frustrating part, kind of on the heels of what you just said, and adding to it, is there are the questions that have been there from day one.
Yes.
Now, how many new questions have we added in the last 3 weeks? And when you've gone 2-1, but Nebraska has messed around. They found a way to win, which is admirable, which they haven't in the past. But we're now 7 games in, and Nebraska hasn't really, against a Power 4 team, shown that you can play a full 60 minutes of football. The other thing is, here's a thing. I love complimentary football, but there were opportunities on Friday night to have really good complimentary football. Take advantage of 4th and inches of the 47 and Minnesota punts. The backbreaker, though, is your special teams were about to bail you out by the punt at the 2-yard line, and you allowed Minnesota just to line it up and move down the field. And yeah, they had a couple of big plays during those 14, but most of them were just simple one-on-one. I'm going to beat you at the line of scrimmage. And if we get 4, great. 2nd and 6. We get another 4, great. It's 3rd down and 2. We just got 6. It's 1st down. Move the chains. You had a chance to pin Minnesota and then to get field position to help an offense that was still trying to figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you do? You allowed them to go all the way down the field.
Yeah.
And we've seen that this year where Nebraska offensively will get a score, and the defense has been playing really well, but then the defense gives up another score.
Yeah, it happened in Cincinnati. It happened in the first game of the season.
Yeah.
And we identified that might be a potential problem. And it wasn't a problem last season. Last season, we actually heard the opposite, that the defense at times were like, all right, they were even more amped after a turnover because they were like, here's our opportunity to prove our worth. You talk about the cut stoppers, right? It's just like they got it against Maryland. Okay. With the long run from EJ. They got the play against Michigan State with the long play from Ja'Cory Barney. They just didn't get it against Minnesota. And it's just like, I don't know if they gave themselves an opportunity to do that, though.
Well, does Dylan Raiola have the ability to be a cut stopper?
He was against he was, yes. He's shown it. He was a cut stopper on that throw to Ja'Cory Barney against Michigan State, and he was a cut stopper on that drive when he slipped and he had that great throw toward the sideline. And then he led that drive to get a touchdown to win that game. He's proven that he can do it. And I think that's another layer of even more frustration of like, I've seen this before. I've seen you do this before. I know you have the ability to do it. Why are you unable to do that? And also too,
and that's why I keep wondering out loud, bad night at the office,
sure,
or more questions have been added.
So this is a question I'll ask Jay Moore, because he might be, and I'll ask, and I think you too. You
I'm
can
tight
answer,
now, by the way, with Jay Moore's father-in-law and mother-in-law.
You're tight?
Mimi and Tom, they love some Sharpie.
I'll ask you. I think you'll be able to answer this question as well, because you have a ton of experience. We talk about physicality.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota was a more physical team. Michigan was a more physical team. What is the ingredient that is missing in Nebraska football that is not allowing them to be a physical team? Is it a culture thing? Is it a coaching thing? Is it you're not getting the best athletes? Is it you're not recruiting the right mindset to be physical? Like, why is Nebraska getting out physical in the Big Ten? It's frustrating. There are some of these questions that we can ask that we can point to answers to. I don't have an answer as to why.
Well, is your answer Monday through Friday?
And they're not practicing hard enough, and they're not coaching them hard enough, because that's an issue.
Well, maybe not practicing hard enough or coaching them hard enough, but what is the physical level in practice?
Yeah. I mean, but they bragged about it last year, where they were like, we would have NFL scouts come in here and say that the only practice that was more physical was Georgia. Like that became a tagline for Matt Rule and something he was proud about.
Yeah. And that's a question like all of us can't really answer because we don't go to practice. So we don't need. But you would think a lot of the things you do Monday through Friday should carry over to Saturday, right?
Yes.
Everything is said, hey, Saturday should be the easiest day of the week.
Yes. It's one of those things. You're right. We can't really answer it. But it is frustrating when it's just visually, you can just see, hey, that team for whatever reason is tougher than you.
Well, does Rule have an Iowa-Minnesota problem? And if that's the case, how do you rectify it?
If Rule has an Iowa and Minnesota problem, I don't see how Nebraska is going to win 9 or 10 games with him as a coach.
All right. We'll step aside. Dave, stay right there. Again, Matt Rule, regular scheduled media availability comes up at 11:30 today. Wow. So the vibe's not only different a week later, the vibe in that press conference will be a little bit different. Last week, everybody wanted to talk about Penn State. Now it's like, let's talk about what happened on Friday night and what happens on Saturday against Northwestern. I just saw this. about Mike Norvell. Nothing is going to happen in Tallahassee. The athletic director at Florida State has said that Mike Norvell is his guy for the rest of the year.
Wow.
Interesting defensive coordinator moves in the offseason. Tony White to Tallahassee, Jim Knowles to State College.
Yeah.
And through it all, Matt Patricia has 2 shutouts in 7 games. And of the 3, and Tony really wasn't compared to Knowles and Patricia because it was Penn State, Ohio State. Patricia was the one that everybody's like, ah!
Well,
So
get
Ohio
those
State.
pencils ready, baby.
So Ohio State, 77-10 now is Ryan Day.
That's incredible. And people wanted him on the hot seat last year.
We're back with more of Gary and Matt with Jimmy after this on 1620 The Zone. I knew that basketball season was back. We got a high knees appearance on Saturday in Lincoln.
I saw that. I saw the video. It was great. It was glorious.
One thing before we get back to the calls, because this is not all Nebraska, Minnesota, or Nebraska Northwestern, or negative outrage Monday. We may have had, because I don't know if you probably didn't see this because you were with Big Red Overreaction, which will be Josh and Matt again after the Northwestern game.
Yes. I'm excited. We have a groove. I think it's gonna be like our fourth time doing it together.
Good. I enjoyed the show after Minnesota. Hopefully it's a win for you guys.
Well, I'm now 6-2 in my Big Red Overreaction record.
If you missed it, find a way to watch any highlights from either Omaha or Lincoln TV stations, or go find the game on Huddle. The Waverly Norris game, Friday night, is probably going to go down as the game of the year so far in high school football. So back and forth, and it is won by Waverly on a last-second field goal by a young man, wrote his name down.
Yep.
Landry Moss. First varsity kick.
Nice.
And it's the game-winning field goal in a game that had 12 touchdowns and went back and forth. B is loaded. B's going to be such a fun playoff because it's going to be a slugfest in the playoffs. But speaking of the playoffs, if things hold serve after Westside rolled Prep, you're going to have a semifinal between Westside and Millard South at Phelps Field.
That's crazy.
Start selling tickets now. But it's a home field.
Wow.
You never know what's going to happen against the juggernaut Millard South. But it'll be at Phelps Field. It'd be a semifinal game. Because Westside's probably definitely locked into the 1 because they look really good against Prep. And then Millard South looks like they will be the 4 seed. Now, Millard South and Benson play this weekend. I got to think that there will be an agreement that they will have a running clock at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter. That and they've done that before, is what I've not those two teams specifically, but that has happened before where they do the running clock to begin the game. I have some high school football news.
What?
Trey Taylor did what I thought was quite possibly the impossible, and he beat Loyola Academy 42-14. Okay, I don't think anybody who has been
Should have led
following
with this.
high school football in Illinois, especially Catholic League football in Illinois, would ever think that Carmel would beat the back-to-back state champions by 28 points. By the way, they did it at Loyola. They went on the road on senior night.
Nobody just
which,
goes in there.
by the way,
and wins.
goes and tells you what Loyola thought about Carmel heading into the year. That Carmel was their senior night. And they went ahead and they beat them by 28 points. It was never even close. And then Trey's getting a little heat because they did a video afterwards of them taking a Loyola shirt and ripping up the Loyola shirt and then saying, "What's a Rambler?" I love it. Okay. When you're in the Catholic League, there's no friends. No friends at the Catholic.
Oh, yeah. What a football weekend in Chicago.
Yes. Yes, Jim. Exactly.
Back to the Prairie Flower Casino hotline. Here is Dave. Good morning, Dave. Dave.
Hey, how's it going, fellas?
Hello, Dave.
Yeah, I just we need to get back to, I mean, how much talent do we have on the defensive side that would be NFL players? I mean, in the past few years, we have hardly had anybody. We need to go back to getting the Levante David. You know, I know that they're far and few between, but some Levante David, some Larry Asante. Like, I know Sue's once in a generation, but I mean, just like we got to go back to going after some playmakers. Like it doesn't seem like, I don't know if it's our defense, just not being able to let players do their thing, but we have to go back to getting some players that we like know their names, you know, and know who's making a tackle and making a play. This is just, it's so frustrating. And even NFL guys, just in general, offensive line, defensive line, I can hardly name any players that will be NFL players outside of just, walk-ons. So it's just becoming increasingly frustrating. Like, I just don't know if we're landing the right players, but, the NIL money, we still have money, and you see these other teams like Indiana, you see these teams like Penn State, which has recovered from all that stuff. And we are all dying for Nebraska football to be good, but we just can't get there. And even with Dylan, he has arm talent. We all see that, but But yeah, he in today's game, I mean, I don't even know if I consider him as high of an NFL prospect as other people do either, because it's the same thing. The only player who really does that in the NFL is like, Stafford or Jared Goff. And so those are few and far between.
Yeah.
So that's all I got.
Dave, thanks. McShay has never put Dylan under his.
He hasn't.
Yeah.
He has not shown up on the boards or anything. Now that
Well,
now,
I'm not saying like on the boards, but like has just done a film study like any of the draft guys.
he hasn't evaluated.
Maybe you
him.
could ask McShay. You have
Well,
a relationship with him.
Yeah, I can email Todd. The thing is that I say that, by the way, very jokingly. I just subscribe to his newsletter. He doesn't really do non-draft eligible players.
Okay.
So he kind of sticks with the guys who are eligible to be drafted. So I anticipate that if Dylan ends up, when they play in the postseason, right, that maybe he'll do something because he'll be newly eligible for the draft. But no, you're right. He has not done like a tape study or evaluation or anything like that.
I was looking through the stats from Friday night because Deshaun Singleton had a very quiet 7 tackles.
Yeah. I texted you at one point, which, by the way, I was laughing during the show. I wasn't laughing at you. I was going through our text messages, and I was just laughing at myself with how many I sent you. I think I sent
Look
you.
how funny I am.
I know.
That TV broadcast must have been really bad.
Jimmy, I was like stringing them together because I just needed information that wasn't being given to me over the television, and Gary was there to give it to me. Which, by the way, thank you so much for responding. Like, you could have easily just been like, "Shut up, dude. I'm going to watch."
Wi-Fi
the game."
was good.
No,
and that's the bigger
really?
takeaway from Huntington Bank
we need
Stadium.
to upgrade there. But yeah, no, what was I? Oh, I texted you at one point. I go, "Where's 8-bit?" I have not.
Yeah.
I have not seen 8.
See, I was going to text you also, Gary, but the only thing I was going to text you is you think Matt will admit Shohei's the GOAT, but I was like, as the game unfolded, he doesn't want that right now. He's busy.
I tweeted at you. I said maybe he is the GOAT.
We had that on as
He had
well.
one of the greatest playoff performances ever.
We have, if you miss it, we do have a game 7 tonight to determine who plays the Evil Empire, the Dodgers. We've all played with Shohei Ohtani.
What do you mean?
We have. If you played Little League,
I did.
You've played. Somebody has been on your roster
like Kelly
as a kid growing up. Yeah, if Kelly Leak was a pitcher, that's who Shohei is. But you've played with somebody that was the best player on the team, and he also pitched. So he would strike out 10, and then he'd hit a couple of home runs during the same game when you're playing Little League. That guy was Chad Larson. His dad also used to be the head coach of the Tigers when we were in seniors in Urbandale Little League. We've all played with that guy. It's not only like he's the GOAT. It is. Why'd you just do that? He gave up 2 hits and he had 3 hits of his own. It is. I think you have to have the conversation about what he did as one of the greatest individual games in the history of baseball.
So yes,
he hit a ball out of the stadium
At night.
and,
At night.
and he was striking out guys with 100-mile-an-hour fastball.
So Jimmy knows you hit it out of Dodger Stadium like in the afternoon,
but not at night when that air's cooler.
Exactly. To
thicker.
hit it out at night is a whole nother level of. Like, if he hit that thing at 1:00, it might have gone 500 feet. Like that, you just. It's
Got to
so
meet Cameron Brink
it's
before
so
the
hard
game.
to do that. So
Things
yeah,
going
I
well.
will give you. It was
Go.
one of the greatest performances ever. It was incredible. Does it make him the GOAT? No. Does it make him pretty damn close? Is he very close to being better than Willie Mays? Yes. Yes.
Now, had they
It's okay.
had the Huskers won, I probably do text you that just because you'd have been feeling the best.
Hey, there's a couple things we can agree on. One, nice job, Brewers.
Losers.
Won 18 in 4 games. And the Cubs actually had a better playoff record than the Brewers did.
Yeah.
They would have at least won a game.
I'm going to be honest with you right now. I mean, the city of Chicago is just owning Milwaukee in
There you go.
terms of just like sports right now.
Your
So
move,
much better.
Bucks.
Hey, what's
when it comes to the Packers Bears, though, go Packers.
Screw you. What's
I want to go to the Super Bowl.
What's Milwaukee's NHL team's record? Oh wait, poverty. Not big enough to have an NHL team. How embarrassing. Go to Milwaukee Admirals games, guys.
Thing
Have
to
fun
learn.
over there.
Thing to learn is you do not want to lose to the Cubs in the postseason.
Why? Because if you lose, you end up losing.
Only one time since 1984 is a
Yeah.
team that's lost to the Cubs in the postseason won the World Series.
Is there an opposite
It's the
stat of that?
Marlins in 03.
Padres lost in 5
is
in
there
the
an-
World Series.
Is there an
and
opposite
Giants got
stat of
swept.
that? Like
I don't know
one-
what's an opposite stat.
would be like
Stat boy.
one team, like you want to beat this one team because the team that beats them, like pretty consistently ends up winning the World Series. I wonder if the Yankees are like that.
Yeah, I mean, the Astros run. Say we beat the Yankees and we won the World Series.
Yeah.
No, I'm just focusing on the
That's
Cubs.
nice.
All I care about is the Cubs. And you know what? I'm glad that the Dodgers are going to take Kyle Tucker because we don't have to make a dumb decision. Good decision here is to talk to Brian. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you today, Brian? That's
Hanging
okay.
in there, I guess.
Okay.
Hey, quick question here for you. What do you think Rule's press conference will be like today? I mean, he went up there and spouted his mouth off about needing more NIL money last week. I mean, now I think he looks, rubbed me the wrong way, and I think he looks pretty stupid even saying that last week. You say you need more NIL money, and then you go out to Minnesota and geez, that was terrible.
That was Brian. Thanks for the phone call. I think he will be this way. And the opinion on Rule has changed quite a bit since the Maryland game, right?
Yes.
Hey, Rule, great guy. He sent the team back out there to hang out with the fans. Then all of a sudden, Penn State fires Franklin, and Rule's name gets attached, and then Rule's got to respond. People are like, and then you do what you did on Friday night after what Brian said. You asked for a little bit more money against a team where, before we even talk about NIL, their staff is not paid the same as your staff.
No.
Okay. They just beat you up in the game of football. They punched you and you didn't punch back. So I think this is what he'll be like today. I think he will remind people that Nebraska's 5-2 because he will talk to the media and the fans today. He will talk to his team through the media at this press conference. He will remind people that Nebraska is 5-2. And I hope that he will do what I propose. You have to be cognizant of the failures of Friday night and that the noise is out there, but you can't let it consume you. And I think he will be like that. But we got to have some questions about the offensive line. Like, why is 5 different entities can't get on the same page? And then what are you going to do to help the quarterback, to help the offensive line, to help the running back, to help anybody? What is a solution that you will see on Saturday? So I think it'll be fine, but it's a 5-game vibe check of people that were like, I'm all in for Rule. And a week later is like, Penn State, come get him.
Yeah.
Come get your boy.
Literally.
Come get your boy. Because we got in our Equitable Bank inbox today, people are now giving me lists. This is who I want.
Come on. It was.
You're surprised?
I mean, a little. Yeah. Like.
No, because of who you lost to and how you lost and the timing of everything.
I know. But I think that I've been incredibly critical of them and rightfully so after this game. I still think, though, that they have done enough before this game for me to think that, and for people to think that they still could win 8 games. And I think that with how Friday went, there were things that need to be fixed and have been a problem. But I think you also can chalk it up to, hey, they're the youngest team in the Big Ten who went on the road back-to-back weeks, and one of them was a short week. Right. And like that I think also played a factor into it.
Well, that's why you get to play on Saturday to say, okay, just a reminder, we were 5-1, had a bad night, 5-2, back home. Now we're 6-2.
You want to bet he buries the tape? Be like, we went out, we watched the tape, we went out to the practice field.
I hope not.
We
I hope he
buried
says
it.
thank you to Minnesota
for
thank you,
kicking their
PJ
butt
Fleck.
and giving them time to reflect on who they are.
Okay, so let's say Nebraska makes the same. They mess with their food another game, and they walk the tightrope, and they're good in the first quarter, and then they save themselves in the fourth quarter, but the middle quarters are rough, and yet you win. Okay?
Okay.
You know at some point the bill's going to come due.
Yes.
Wouldn't you rather have it sooner than later? Then when you get towards the end of the season and you have a playoff chance on the line, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, now we ran out of magic. So I would say, thank you, Minnesota. But I also say, PJ, what do you see?
If my only
How do you do it? How do you do it every single
Sure.
time? It's not a Rule thing, not a Frost thing. It's a Riley thing. I think it's the helmets. What do you do? What do you see? Why are your guys different in this game than they are in the previous week when I'm sitting in my office watching film. What is it, PJ? Tell me, please. We don't play you next year. Tell me so that when we do play you, and neither one of us may be at our current jobs, Nebraska, Minnesota looks different.
Why? I mean, all PJ is going to tell him is that it takes Nebraska for Minnesota to become Minnesota. I mean, that's just kind of what it is. That's what happened.
I'm gonna say he would say this. You guys at Nebraska overthink this too much. Football is simple. You make football hard.
Probably. And I would say that probably PJ recruits way more to a certain style that he wants to play than Nebraska recruits to. You know, I think that there might be, we talked about it earlier, more cohesion when it comes to the type of talent and the type of player that they're bringing into Minnesota based on how they want to play. It's all about identity.
There is one thing, because some people did go to Mall of America and they got verbally abused. That's a true story.
It's supposed to be a happy place.
At least one thing that Nebraska and Minnesota fans can agree on is that there is a collective hate of Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
So Minnesota and Iowa play this weekend in Iowa City. But they can all agree on that.
Oh, for sure.
But Minnesotans can agree that when it comes to Nebraska, PJ Fleck owns Nebraska. That's a wild record that he has against Nebraska.
7-1.
6 in a row. 6 in a row. And they all kind of follow the same script.
Well, they follow the same script because it comes down to if I were to ask you, hey, Gary, what is Minnesota's identity? You would have an answer for me.
Yeah. But it wasn't like this year's team's identity was not what we saw on Friday night. They went back to the old school Minnesota identity to win a game against a team that has an identity but doesn't have an identity.
Yeah, to be fair to that, though, like Darius Taylor finally got healthy, and we kind of saw that coming in terms of, all right, he's going to have his legs under him, and it might be very difficult for Nebraska to go against that. But I think my point is more so if I were to ask you in the 3 years of Matt Rhule being here, what's Matt Rhule's identity? I think that if I asked that question to 10 different people, I'd get 10 different answers.
Yeah. All right, that's coming up at 11:30 this morning. You'll hear it right here on the Zone, and of course, everyone will react.
Big Rhule overreaction.
Hey, there's an idea.
What is he going to say? We got our ass kicked. Are you going to say it again? We got physically, we got beat. Physicality. There, it's time for solutions.
Yes.
Before the season goes south. But you made changes after UCLA. What changes happen after the worst loss? You don't have to make them now.
Yeah.
But you can't have this happen and not react. You can't overreact, but you have to react.
You have to change something.
So we'll see. We're back to put a wrap on this one coming up after this. All right, double dip of the NFL tonight. You get to watch Baker Mayfield, Levante David, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Good enough game.
So not only are we going to have an Indiana Vanderbilt national championship for college football, we're going to have the Bucks and the Colts.
Hell yes.
Playing in the Super Bowl, and we could have Levante David tackling Amir Abdul.
Look at that. I just feel better now that you said that.
By the way, he looks skinnier and he looks more explosive than he did with the Raiders playing for the Colts. He had a long kickoff return.
Yeah.
Their offense is not bad. It's not just Jonathan Taylor, like Daniel Jones. They look pretty dynamic.
The Chargers looked atrocious.
Colts Bucks Super Bowl, Hoosiers Commodores national championship game. What a great sport this is.
Shout out to Vegas, who keeps underestimating the Indianapolis Colts and making them underdogs in every game, thinking the bottom's going to fall out. Mixed Sportsbook has benefited greatly from that. So thank you so much, Vegas.
Ooh.
I'm going to keep riding the Daniel Jones train. By the way, Daniel Jones, if his name wasn't Daniel Jones, would probably be the favorite for the MVP. But his name's Daniel Jones, and everybody's crapped on him for years, so he's not going to get that
comeback player of the year.
Propaganda shove. But
Modern
he has
day
the
Jim
number one
Plunkett.
QBR in the entire NFL, and you wouldn't know about it if you watch ESPN.
Well, you would know if you're in Minnesota because you had Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones on your roster, and now you have an old Carson Wentz who you asked to throw the ball 42 times yesterday, and you have a J.J. McCarthy who has only been available for 2 of his 22 games in his NFL career. Here's a game that it was rare to watch the Chiefs play at noon yesterday.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Refreshing.
I have no idea why Pete Carroll came back to the game. Maybe just to prove that I'm not going to go out by being fired. They had 3 first downs. They only ran 30 plays. They got dominated. The Chiefs were in victory formation before the 2-minute warning.
That's awesome.
Before the 2-minute warning.
We got our human victory cigar out there. Gardner looked great. The hair looked phenomenal.
It's a gorgeous day down there.
I mean, Mahomes swag is back. They had linebackers trying to cover Rice. I got my quarterback who is pulling out his acting chops.
But I thought it was over.
That's what some people say. But you know what? The
Stuff never
the
works.
25 Chiefs would blow out the 24 Chiefs, and now they're a 9.5-point favorite against RG3 and the Commanders.
Are the Chiefs hot again?
Chiefs are playing well.
They're hot, baby.
The Chiefs are playing well, but that's a bad Raiders team. That was in the NFL, 31-0. But how about this? So who would have thunk this? And I wonder if this fits into the flex window. Maybe not, because the Chiefs and the Cowboys play that Thursday. The Colts and the Chiefs play a nooner on November 23rd at Arrowhead. When it was on the schedule, you're like,
yeah, Colts Chiefs.
Oh,
That'll be the
Colts
game
Chiefs.
someone gives us tickets to.
Now it could turn out to be a monster game in the AFC.
I think first off, it's only going to get worse for the Raiders because as the season goes on, their schedule gets harder and they get less and less rest than everybody else.
They get less better.
So I assumed that upgrading your coach and upgrading your quarterback would just automatically make you a better team. But their quarterback is terrible and forces things into windows that he shouldn't force it into. And their coach may be old and doesn't have the same bump in the secondary that he used to have. So the Raiders, once again, are a joke. And does it really matter if Tom Brady is in all the meetings? I mean, it's not like it's going to help him anyway.
Well, you can watch more Raiders on the Red Zone, where there's now more commercials. The slow takeover of commercials on Red Zone is off and running. Go to our website, 1620thezone.com. The four-quarter pick'em is back open for this week. And while you're there, check out the Woodcliff Restaurant. It is this week's Zone Deal. It's you can enjoy all the delicious food, perfect view of the Woodcliff Lake, and listen to the afternoon show. Your chance to win certificates, gift vouchers to Woodcliff Restaurant. It is this week's Zone Deal. Go to 1620thezone.com.
Let me look at the results here. I want to see.
I don't like the results this week. I mean, they're okay, but they're just
they haven't been submitted.
I know in our game, I was a cowardly Michigan State field goal at the end of the game away from going 3-0. Jonathan Smith, you're 0-4. You guys have regressed. I would fire you if I was the athletic director of Michigan State because of what you did.
I think
Bring
I went
Saban
2-1.
back to East Lansing.
I think I went 2-1. Hey, you got a bad beat with that. I got a bad beat with Kellen DeBoer and the Alabama game. Bad beats, they work out. It's all even. Okay.
Big win for our guy down there.
Bad football guy. What the hell are you talking about? He's 7-1 against ranked teams, and he's 7-4 against everybody else.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Damn good coach.
He is. He is. He's a really good coach.
From the Midwest.
Who are we talking about again?
Kalen DeBoer.
That's who you just brought up.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I just
That's the coach at Alabama. From South Dakota. You had two guys coaching in that game were both from South Dakota.
That's just a state above us.
You and I actually killed it on this fourth quarter pickup, by the way. So congratulations.
That's okay. You know what? All the ball knowers that apparently are on this station, I don't know. My team in the NFL is playing pretty well right now.
Your team in the NFL, which I picked to go to the Super Bowl, which a lot of people gave me flack for doing,
Yeah.
looks like they are probably the second best team in the NFC.
Bucks,
AFC.
Bucks, Colts, Indiana, Vanderbilt. Let's let it happen,
That is
baby.
not Indiana Vanderbilt is not going to happen. You could interest
Why are you
me.
so
I'm going
negative?
to be real. You can interest me in Colts Bucks. I don't think the bottom's going to fall out at all with the Colts. You look at how the Colts are blocking, how they're running the football, the fact that Daniel Jones isn't turning over.
They are the
ball.
81 49ers. Look it up.
He is being incredibly efficient. The defense is running all over the field. Laiti Latu seems like he's actually getting to the quarterback, and they were able to punish that really bad Chargers offensive line that's been knackered. They're taking advantage, baby.
All right, enjoy the doubleheader of football. The late game is Houston and Seattle. Go Canadians today.
I'll be watching baseball.
I want Vladdy
Oh.
batting against Shohei.
I thought you were talking about Montreal.
They are in Canada.
There
I
is
know,
a
but I thought-
documentary on them
but-
coming
but
out on Netflix
Really?
tomorrow.
On the Expos.
Yeah, who killed
No,
them?
I thought you were talking about the Montreal Canadiens. Which, by the way,
No.
did you see the Hawks one again?
No.
The Hawks won another game, baby.
Are we back? Look at that.
Mazer,
What a
Reggie,
weekend in Chicago.
Spencer Knight. Bulls won a preseason game.
Round Ball Rock is back tomorrow. The NBA is back. We're back in 20 hours. Crossover is coming up next. I wonder if any other show on the station will have anything to talk about today. Thanks to everybody. Great conversation, as it usually is after a game like that.
Love the call.
Matt Rule speaks at 11:30. We react to that tomorrow as well with 2 NFL games and a Game 7. Mariners, Blue Jays. See you tomorrow at 6.